The profession of a mentor has nothing to do with wars. Therefore, he firmly decided that he would live a quiet life. But only until one day, the guy was thinking about his quiet and peaceful life, while he was swinging all his hastily made weapons at a large, huge orc that was already preparing to attack him and was bursting into an angry scream. Memories slipped in my head that two human silhouettes, a woman and a man, asked Ryu for forgiveness for the fact that they would not be able to take him with them on their journey. The couple walked away, leaving only a long shadow behind them. They explained their action by saying that Ryu's profession would not help them in any way in battles. The man said goodbye to Ryu, and he asked him to stay and continue taking care of the animals. The guy just holds out his hand to them and asks questions about why they did this. He helplessly asked them to stop and wait for him, because he could also fight with them. Suddenly, the guy wakes up on his bed with his arm outstretched. The sun was shining brightly in the room, and its rays were already keeping the guy awake. These memories turn out to be a dream. Ryu's house is located among mountains and hills. He has quite a lot of animals on his farm, which he takes good care of. The guy went outside to feed the animals. Suddenly, the cow, which he had just fed with fresh-mown grass, began to caress him. The guy was delighted and stroked the animal's chin. Suddenly, a girl called out to Ryu. A girl with a cat in her arms slowly approaches the guy. She sincerely thanks him for the fact that it was thanks to Ryu that her cat finally recovered. As soon as the girl came up, the guy stroked the animals on the top of their heads. He is glad that the girl's pet has finally recovered. The girl notices that, despite the fact that Ryu's profession is a mentor, he is still able to treat animals. The guy smiles cheerfully in agreement, but in fact, he is at a loss, because he did not really want to be a mentor. As it turned out, the profession is determined by the church. With the profession of a mentor, it can be much easier for a person to make friends with animals. However, two of his childhood friends received the professions of a young hero and a wizard. A young hero can evolve into a hero. So the girl immediately began to study the path of knights and spend more time training hard. And a magician is a support profession, and its owner was trained in magic in the church. And when everyone grew up, Ryu's two friends went on a trip. Ryu remembers this and thinks that compared to his friends, he makes little progress. Suddenly, he is distracted again by a girl with a cat in her arms. She is unhappy that the guy was distracted by his thoughts and did not listen to her at all. He roused himself and apologized to the girl. He asked the guest about what they stopped talking about. The girl reminds Ryu that there are rumors in the city that his friends should return to the city soon. The guy yawns sweetly. He's a little tired and thinks it's time for him to take a break. He stands in the middle of the trees and stretches, raising his arms high up. The wind ruffles his obedient hair. Ryu did not think that after such a dream, friends could return in this way. Ryu realizes that they have always been together before. However, now he was all alone. Therefore, using his profession, Ryu became friends with many dogs and cats. He played with them a lot and took care of them. The guy leans his hand on his head and dreams that he could tame Fenrir. After all, then he would be able to follow his friends and stay close to them. However, such a dream is simply impossible, and it is impossible to pull this off. Suddenly, the guy is distracted from his dreams by an angry growl in the bushes behind him. The guy wonders what it was. Ryu is sure that there should be no one in the forest. He spreads the bushes a little with his hands and asks if there is anyone there. The guy's eyes widen in surprise. He immediately notices the smooth fur of some animal. There was a wolf in the bushes. His eyes were fixed directly on the guy. Ryu couldn't take his eyes off the beautiful animal. He was amazed at how incredible this wolf was. Ryu still can't believe his eyes. Suddenly, he notices that the wolf's hind leg has fallen into a trap. The sharp iron protrusions bit painfully into the hind leg. Ryu immediately came closer to the wolf and asked him to wait, because now he can help him. The wolf did not appreciate such support and began to growl threateningly towards the guy. As soon as Ryu stretched out his hand to the wolf, he immediately bit into it tightly. Ryu accepted the attempt to detach his hand from the animal's grip and asked him to calm down, holding the ferocious animal by the scruff of the neck. While the wolf was floundering and resisting, Ryu managed to remove the trap from his hind leg. The wolf is watching the guy with interest. Ryu asks to wait for the animal for a while, because he had potions with him. The wolf waits patiently and watches with interest as the guy rummages in his bag. The guy pours a potion over the animal's hind leg and says that now he will be all right, and that now he will be able to run freely and confidently. The guy gets up and is about to leave, because it's time for him to get back to work. Ryu just manages to turn around, and the animal already seemed not to be in place. The guy grinned and returned home. It was a dark night. There were no lanterns, no artificial lighting that could somehow help to make out this darkness. Nature was illuminated only by the stars and the moon, which reflected the light from the sun. Ryu couldn't sleep. He lay on his bed and wondered if that wolf had been able to find his place and return to his pack. Ryu considers it a good outcome that at that moment, he was next to the animal and was able to help him. The guy yawns sweetly and covers his mouth with his hand. He thinks that it's time for him to go to bed, because it's quite late, and he needs to get enough sleep. Suddenly, a wolf's foot steps into the room. A wolf appears above Ryu's head. He opens his mouth and greets the guy with joy. The animal says that today is a very beautiful night. Ryu turns around in fright and looks at the animal. He repeats his last words. The guy realizes that the animal turned out to be the wolf he saved in the afternoon. While Ryu was realizing all this, he realized that the animal can talk. The guy sits on his bed and thinks that it might not be a wolf, but some kind of monster, because it can even understand human speech and talk. Meanwhile, while the guy was trying to figure out what was going on, the monster was walking around the room and saying that he had a question for the guy. The guy calls out to the animal's request and says that he will answer if he can. The wolf is surprised and tells the guy that he is very honest. Ryu looks away and agrees with the wolf's words. After all, if something happens, he will immediately be defeated by the sharp teeth of the animal. The animal tilts its head to the side. In this case, the wolf asks him to answer the question of why Ryu decided to help the animal anyway. So, he also spent his potion. The man is at a loss. He is thinking about how to respond to the animal. After all, he can't say that he just wanted to help, because no one will believe such nonsense. And if he does lie, he can make ends meet in a moment. Suddenly, the wolf opened her mouth and asked the guy to answer immediately, because she is not so patient as to wait for Ryu to collect all her thoughts in a pile. The guy gathered his resolve and said with embarrassment that he helped the wolf because he thinks she is very beautiful. The wolf was taken aback by such a statement because she definitely did not expect to hear such an answer. The guy explains that he would not want such a beautiful wolf to disappear just like that. The wolf starts laughing loudly. Now she understood what the reason for the guy's action was. In fact, he wanted the wolf to live a long life, so he helped her get out of the trap. She covers her nose with her paw and says that the guy is still very interesting. She says that she was just playing with such things a little bit, and he decided to help her out. The guy exhales and looks away. He understands that at that moment she did not need help at all. However, the wolf turns back to Ryu with genuine interest. She says that she likes the guy and asks for his name. The guy hesitates, and the wolf asks not to be afraid of her. He says his name. The wolf repeats the unusual name of the guy. She notices that the guy's name is quite unusual. She says that from that moment on, the guy is now hers. And the guy's objection about this is not accepted. The guy did not understand this hint of the wolf a little. He assumed that he had slightly misheard her. Suddenly, the wolf says that he heard everything correctly. She said that from now on, Ryu will be her pet. The guy was taken aback by such a statement and affirmatively pointed at himself, clarifying such unexpected information about himself. Suddenly, the wolf suddenly increased in size so that she broke through the ceiling with her head. Splinters of wood flew all over the room. She encouraged Ryu to go with her. The wolf took the guy across her mouth. The guy thinks that the wolf can not only talk, but also increase in size. He believes that the wolf is a Fenrir. Ryu asks her about it, to which she responds with surprise at what he just noticed. The guy asked to wait for the she-wolf quite a bit so that he could take at least a bag with him. After a while, they found themselves in the forest. The Fenrir girl says that they are already in place and throws the guy to the ground. Ryu remembers those moments when they were rushing through the forest with all their legs, or to be more precise, their paws. It was an unimaginable horror for him, because he had to ride in the mouth of an animal all the way. The guy looks up and sees that the crowns of the trees literally envelop the whole sky. Bright sunlight illuminates his bright eyes, which saw for the first time such an unusual place. The guy himself found himself in a small pit near a hill on which one of the Fenrir stood. Exactly the same individuals stood around the perimeter of the hill. and watched the guy with interest. The one who stood on the hill carefully watched Fenrir and Ryu come. The guy looked at them in surprise. A pack of Fenrir appeared in front of him. There were clearly about 20 or 30 Fenrir in the pack. The one in the middle is much bigger than the others. The guy thinks that he is most likely the leader of this pack. Ryu is filled with terror from head to toe. He's very scared. He wonders if he will ever be able to return from this forest alive. Suddenly Fenrir, the supposed leader, turns to his daughter and asks her what kind of person she brought into their house. Ryu realizes that the wolf who brought him here in her mouth is the daughter of this pack leader. The wolf explains that she liked him, so she decided to bring him. The father begins to swear and tells his daughter that this is not a reason at all to drag a person into their pack and forest. The other rudely addresses the main character and asks him how he knows her daughter. The guy says that he works on a ranch. The leader repeats his question again. Then Ryu began to explain that the leader's daughter had fallen into a trap and he had simply saved her. The leader of the Fenrir began to explain that they, the Fenrir, could easily destroy any trap. And Ryu explains that he only later found out that his daughter was just playing with these traps. The leader is clearly unhappy that she has taken up her task again. The daughter turns to her father and says that the person she brought has a mentor's profession. According to her daughter, perhaps Ryu can help their grandfather. The wolf turns to the guy again and asks if this information is true. The leader of the pack looks away and says that their grandfather lived a long life, and it is unlikely that someone will be able to help him with the problem. At this time, the daughter explains to Ryu in a low whisper that her grandfather's health has deteriorated due to a lack of magical power. She considers it partly her fault. The guy doesn't quite understand, but it seems to him that one of their loved ones is not running out at all, and they brought him here only because he can help in some way. Realizing this, the guy turns back to the leader. Ryu says that the leader should not swear so much at his child. W. Ryu asks to be allowed to meet his grandfather. Since it's already running out anyway, the Fenrir certainly have nothing to lose. Suddenly, the leader snaps at the guy and sternly, with a kind of contempt, orders him to close his mouth. The guy turns back to the leader and says that he was brought here in order to help their kinsman. Ryu still continues and says that if the problem is age, then he is powerless. However, if the problem is completely different, then he will most likely be able to help. At this time, the leader's daughter looked at the guy in surprise. The leader looks at the guy from the top and agrees to his request. He allows him to enter the elder, saying that it is still a waste of invaluable time and effort. They come to the place where the tree diverges at the roots. There is a couch between the roots, on which a very old representative of the Fenrir rested. His granddaughter greets her grandfather, addressing him as her elder. Old Fenrir lifts his heavy eyelids and barely asks why a man is here. The girl was about to explain, when suddenly the guy interrupted her with the same movement of his hand. Ryu holds out my hand to the elder. The guy says that he's very pleased to meet you. Ryu explains that he was brought here by the elder's granddaughter. The boy's profession is a mentor. The guy explains that he is here to help cure Fenrir's disease. The Fenrir elder looks at the guy incredulously and clarifies his profession. He is not sure that the guy will be able to help him. However, Ryu assures that this is quite possible. However, he is not going to do it for free. From such a statement, all the Fenrir in the area were taken aback, and it was time to hide their mouths from bewilderment and indignation. From the side, they immediately heard barking at the guy that a simple person has no right to treat their leader like that. Some even thought that this guy was trying to trick the Fenrir. At this time, the elder came closer to the boy and asked him if he could really help him. The guy agreed. Fenrir examined him with a searching gaze. Ryu did not even turn his nose to the side. Fenrir agreed and told the guy that he hoped for him. Ryu puts his hand to his chest and says that this case will end quickly. However, in return, Ryu will ask for a favor from Henry that he wants to become even stronger. The elder is interested in what the guy needs such power for. Ryu explains this by saying that he is the same as his granddaughter. The guy explains that the girl relied on him because she herself is not able to cure her grandfather, because it is even difficult to imagine. Therefore, she decided to turn to a man. That's why the guy no longer wants to disappoint his loved ones. At this moment, he again remembers the image of two friends who left after him, and his hand, which he stretched out to them. The Fenrir girl was surprised by these words of the guy. The elder said that he accepts the guy's conditions and asks what he should do. The guy explains that everything is quite simple and began to take off his glove. The upper arm of your hand is closer to Fenrir. He asked me to bite him and drink his blood. The leader said that this was complete nonsense. After all, he did not think that the blood of a common man could do anything. Despite all the grumbling from the outside, the elder agreed. He raised his mouth to the guy's hand and bit him. There was a huge dust and a bright glow around the two of them, so that the rest of the Fenrir were forced to somehow grab onto the ground in order not to fly away. The elder's face changed, and the boy held on with all his might. The elder lets go of the guy's hand. Ryu holds her in front of him. He hadn't expected it to hurt so much. The girl is interested in what the guy did. She still doesn't know where the mentor got so much magical power from and is interested in it. The guy understands what the girl is thinking. She believes that Ryu has more magic power than the hero. There are reasons for this. Ryu explains this by wrapping his arm in a bandage. Simply put, Ryu has too much magical power in his body, and if it is not released, it can simply explode. The girl clarifies from the guy that the guy has too much strength. If it doesn't fall out, it will be pretty bad. Ryu says that usually, strength increases with training. However, he was already born with so much power. In addition, after that, as she grows older, she becomes more and more. It can be said that he is a real treasure. The girl is distracted by her elder and turns to her grandfather. He is overwhelmed with strength. The Fenrir elder waved his tail enthusiastically. He was unrecognizable. Others notice that he is already feeling better. The granddaughter gently approaches her grandfather and caresses him with her crown. The elder remembers about the deal with the guy. He asks him to start training with his pack before he gets the power. The guy is surprised and asks if he can really practice in the Fenrir forest, when suddenly an angry growl comes from behind that you can't do that, because a person can't be part of a pack. The elder sincerely thanks the guy for his help. However, from the outside, you can still hear the dissatisfied cries of other Fenrir, that this man is very weak. It is dangerous to trust him, and in general, he is somehow ignorant. There was an offer from the side to get rid of the guy. The elder, in a menacing voice, ordered all Fenrir to shut their mouths. He viciously asks if his relatives really want to deal with his savior. Suddenly, everyone lowered their heads and pressed their ears to the back of their heads and began to whine plaintively. Ryu felt a terrible pressure. He didn't understand why he was so scared, because the pressure wasn't even directed at the guy. Ryu leans over to the girl and asks about who her grandfather really is. She tells me that he is the very first Fenrir. In another way, we can say that he is the ancestor of all Fenrir. The elder asks what the guy wants to do first. He says that first he wants to learn how to better control magical energy. The elder knows that this requires strength. In this forest, the guy will need to completely change his essence. He will become stronger and will be able to master his power. The guy understands the words of the leader in such a way that he must deal with the person inside himself. However, he is not sure that he will be able to be together with his friends again. The guy gathers his resolve and says that he relies on the elder. The elder and the Fenrir girl close their eyes and nod their heads approvingly in agreement. Suddenly, he holds something in his mouth and hands it to the guy. There's a big fang on the guy's arm. The elder proudly says that this is his fang, and the guy can't believe his eyes, because the treasure he holds in his hands is the real fang of the Fenrir elder. The elder explains that this trophy will be able to help the guy control magic power. Suddenly, a Fenrir girl quickly joins Ryu and says that she will look after him during training. Ryo resolutely clutches the fang in her hands. He asks to wait for his friends because he will definitely catch up with them. For the sake of this desire, he wants to become stronger. Ryo dodges a quick attack. He trains hard with the evil orcs in the Fenrir forest. The evil orc furiously rushes at Ryu, drool flying from its wide-open mouth in all directions. Ryu confidently looks towards the opponent. He is full of determination, because he has been training for about a month. Ryu feels great when the goblin jumps on the guy and swings his club. The attacks of the orcs are quite slow, and they are quite easy to dodge. Ryu, well aware of this, easily avoids the monster's heavy attack. Suddenly, Ryu swings and cuts off the orc's arm. The monster burst into a heart-rending and ear-piercing scream. Then, the blow landed on the legs. Ryu believes that when a monster loses its balance, it can be safely stripped of its head. The guy wipes the sweat from his forehead. He did a great job and is proud of the result. He turns around and asks about the situation with Fenrir's girlfriend. The creature was sitting on a mountain of orcs and yawning sweetly. As it turned out, she was waiting for Ryu to finish with the monster. She notes that he has been dealing with some orc for a very long time. The guy wonders how Fenrir was able to deal with so many orcs. Fenrir are really very amazing. Fenrir and Ryu decided to make a short stop among the trees. They lit a small fire, with which you can roast juicy and delicious meat. Ryu understands that orcs are already the weakest monsters, but despite this, he is already able to cope with them. Fenrir supports the guy and says that, apparently, he has become stronger. After all, on the first day, the guy did nothing but run away. Ryu did not deny this fact. He says that even after a month of training, he can hardly cope with such a monster. To train his stamina, Ryu ran away from a pack of Fenrir, who caught up with him over and over again. And the guy also learned how to survive in the forest. The Fenrir girl was always there and followed the training. To develop immunity, Rao ate poisonous berries. After all, in order to become stronger, he must be able to adapt to absolutely different conditions. Ryu looks at the fang that the elder gave him. The guy realizes that he seems to have achieved such results with the help of this gift, because thanks to its size, the fang can be used as a knife. The Fenrir girl proudly threw her nose up and confirmed the guy's words. She says that her grandfather is just incredible. Ryu thinks it's a good thing that the elder's granddaughter is looking out for him personally. However, the Fenrir girl lowers her head and presses her ears to the back of her head. She's upset that she still doesn't have a name of her own. For monsters, a name is a part of their soul. Therefore, naming monsters requires a huge amount of magical power. However, when the elder tried to bestow a name on his granddaughter, he ran out of all mana. The guy patted Fenrir on the head and asked her not to get upset. Ryu says with a bright smile that the elder will definitely give the name of his granddaughter, so she just needs to wait. The guy says that he just can't look at her sad face. The Fenrir girl looked at Ryu with hope in her eyes. Suddenly, one of the Fenrir jumps out of the bush and calls his mistress, the elder's granddaughter. The girl asks what happened, and the newcomer informed her that he had a message from the head. Suddenly, Fenrir turned to Ryu and wrinkled his nose with a feeling of real contempt. The elder has news about the guy's training, so he urgently needs to come and listen to the leader. Ryu realizes that the whole pack treats him very coldly. The elder is standing by the tree and waiting for the guy. Ryu calls out to the old Fenrir and greets him. The leader says that the guy is pretty fast. The guy explains that he was quite clearly told that he needed to hurry up in order to listen carefully to the elder. And he asked with a smile only not to pay attention to his colleagues. The elder says that many of the Fenrir consider Ryu's training to be useless. The guy didn't quite understand what Fenrir wanted to say and asked about it. The elder says, with a serious look, that he has prepared a test for the guy. Ryu will have to pass the test and show his strength in the Fenrir pack to become one of them. At first, the guy was scared by such an onslaught of the elder. But after a moment, he took a resolute look and confidently asked what he needed to do in order to become a member of the pack. The elder's words are full of seriousness. Fenrir says that Ryu must defeat the demonic rooster as a test, and he must do it, of course, alone. The demonic rooster is a B-rank monster that a whole group of adventurers can defeat with great difficulty. And going on it alone is just plain crazy. Suddenly, the elder's granddaughter emerges from behind the guy and asks her grandfather if she can help Ryu with the task. The elder explains that the whole point of the test is that Ryu must defeat this monster just the same alone, and accordingly, it is impossible to help him. The elder notices that Ryu has not fully realized the power of Fenrir's fang yet. The guy looked at his trophy in surprise. Fenrir explains that fangs have the power to destroy everything in their path, even magic. Ryu has the fang of the Fenrir elder himself, and he will help the guy if he only wants to. The elder grins and says that with such an object, the demonic cock does not pose any danger to the guy. Ryu scratches the back of his head with his hand and doesn't quite understand what Fenrir is talking about. The elder explains that there is nothing wrong with the fact that the guy does not understand anything yet. The guy's trial will begin at sunset, and until then, he needs a good rest. The sun sets behind the mountain. The bright rays illuminating the tops of the trees began to decrease in number. Suddenly, the monster's foot abruptly steps onto the ground. The elder's granddaughter and Ryu carefully look out from behind a bush and watch the monster. The demonic rooster is simply huge. Most of its body looks like a rooster, and instead of a tail, it has a large snake. The monster is hunting a harmless animal. Suddenly, the demonic rooster blinded everything in the area with the light from his eyes. The animal, which was trying to escape from the monster, squeaked for the last time, when suddenly its body, starting with its hind legs, completely petrified. The demonic rooster mercilessly trampled on the sculpture of the animal, and in a moment there was only a pile of stones and dust in its place. Ryu, watching this picture, realizes that the situation is not the best right now. A monster can turn a guy to stone with one look. Besides, the rooster's tail is poisonous. The only advantage is that the monster has a narrow field of view, and it cannot take off. The elder's granddaughter asks the guy if he's okay. Ryu refuses her and says that he has no other choice anyway. The guy boldly stepped over the bushes and headed towards the enemy. The Fenrir's granddaughter wished him luck and asked him to be more careful. The guy stood behind a tree so that the monster would not notice him, and armed himself with the fang of the Fenrir elder. Ryu realizes that attacking a demonic rooster head-on would be stupid, so you need to first deal with the snake on the tail. The guy made a sharp leap forward and, while the snake was not looking in his direction, prepared to strike. As soon as the snake noticed the guy, he had already dealt with it in one blow. Ryu was just incredibly happy that he was able to defeat a part of the monster. Without thinking twice, Ryu ran as fast as he could to the monster's paws. You need to attack them in order to quickly immobilize the monster. Suddenly, the demonic rooster screams and throws Ryu away with his paw. The guy certainly understood that everything would not be so simple. The rooster turns his head from side to side. It looks like he's lost sight of Ryu. The guy begins to guess that he is in the monster's blind spot. The guy abruptly jumps out of the bush and has already swung in order to deliver the intended attack. Suddenly, the rooster seems to slip away from the opponent. Ryu did not understand why this happened exactly until he raised his head to the sky. As it turned out, the demonic rooster can fly. He soared high into the air and spread his huge wings wide. Ryu definitely did not expect this, because he was firmly convinced that the demonic rooster could not fly. The guy realizes that now he is in the palm of the monster's hand. The rooster's wings are spreading more and more. The guy is going to wait for the moment when the cock goes down. However, Ryu does not even have time to finish the thought, when suddenly the demonic rooster closes its wings together, creating a stream of wind of enormous destructive force. The guy is thrown back along with pieces of trees. The elder's granddaughter excitedly asks the guy if he's okay. Ryu carefully gets to his feet and says that everything is fine with him. As it turned out, this wind is very dangerous, since it was able to cut the trees into perfectly even pieces. Ryu begins to guess that the demonic rooster used magic. Ryu wonders what he should do in such a difficult case. It looks like the rooster is not going to come down. The guy realizes that it would be good if he had long-range magic with him. Ryu looks at the fang in a puzzled way and thinks that there must be at least something in it that could bring him closer to victory. Suddenly, the guy remembers about magic. Ryu remembers the elder's words that Fenrir fangs have the power to destroy everything in their path, even magic. And the guy has the fang of the Fenrir elder himself in his hands. This trophy will definitely help the guy if he wants to. The guy carefully, without missing the slightest detail, recalls the attack of the demonic cock from the air. The monster spreads its wings wide again to launch another attack. Ryu instantly jumps out right in front of him and dodges the attacks. He understands that if he doesn't do anything, he will simply make ends meet. He has no other choice. Ryu thinks it's necessary to try something out. The guy takes a stubborn stance and stretches out a Fenrir fang in front of him. A light appeared around him. The elder's granddaughter notices that the guy's mana has increased. Ryu concentrates on her magic. He calls for magical power to flow through the fang, and mana to gather at the tip of the fang. The demonic rooster at this time is rapidly attacking without a break for rest, and now the mana has accumulated to the limit, which only means that it's time to release it. Ryu swung his fang, and a shockwave came out of it rapidly, which is somewhat similar to the attacks that the monster inflicted. This attack hit the demonic rooster, which was still in the air, with a single blow. The monster was defeated, and parts of its body fell to the ground with a crash. The guy couldn't believe his success. He stared at the remains of the stricken monster. The elder's granddaughter jumps out of the bush and congratulates the guy on his victory. She is sincerely glad that he was able to pass the test. Ryu wanted to support Fenrir's words, but fell to the ground. Fenrir immediately began to worry that something might have happened to the guy. In fact, the guy simply didn't have the strength left even to keep himself on his feet. Ryo apologizes for such a reception at Fenrir's and asks her to give her some rest. The elder's granddaughter is surprised that Ryo decided to do it right here, but still did not object and agreed. The guy couldn't say a word anymore. He thinks that now he can rest in peace and then talk to the elder. Suddenly, a woman's hand touches his head. The eyelids are already closing, but the silhouette of a girl is slightly visible through them. Ryu wondered who it could be. Because he was the only person, thoughts no longer had a place in my head, and my eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. The guy is so sleepy, and after a moment he falls asleep. The girl who was sitting next to Ryu let her rest. Meanwhile, the elder was sitting nearby and watching this painting. He praises the guy, because now he can safely become part of their pack. After defeating the demonic rooster, many Fenrir began to spend their time with the guy often. Younger children often asked Ryu to play with them, and adults invited them to hunt and brought all kinds of food. Ryu stretches out his arms in front of him and asks the Fenrir to wait a bit. The elder's granddaughter appears behind the guy. She notices that Ryu is now very popular among the Fenrir. The guy says that now the members of the pack just don't get off him. The elder's granddaughter does not consider this a bad thing, because the guy passed the test and thereby earned respect in the pack. The guy understands that this is a very good alignment of events. However, some people still don't like the new member of the pack. The pack leader stood behind the tree and watched Ryu angrily. Suddenly, the leader of the pack is subdued by his wife. She puts her heavy paw on Fenrir's head. She reproaches her husband for setting a bad example to his children. Ryu is watching this painting. He is glad that Mother Wolf is nearby and tells the elder's granddaughter that her mother is quite ruthless. The interlocutor in response explains that her mother is in a higher position in the pack. As it turned out, the higher position is due to the fact that Mom is the daughter of the Fenrir elder. Ryu looks at his torn sleeve. He realizes that his clothes are completely worn out, and he needs to go to the city to buy new ones. The Fenrir girl wonders why Ryu wouldn't use the extracted monster skins instead of clothes. But Ryu explains that he doesn't have the right sewing skills for this. You need money for new clothes, so Ryu will have to go to the city anyway. Then the elder's granddaughter suggested asking her grandfather about it. Ryu agrees and goes to the elder. Suddenly, the leader, the father of the elder's granddaughter, appears on their way. He firmly forbids Ryu to go out into the city. The leader thinks that the guy wants to give out information about their lair and asks the elder not to even think about letting him go somewhere. The mother notices this. She is unhappy that her husband has gone back to his old ways. Ryu realizes that the leader is right, because if someone finds out about the location of the pack, they will be in great danger. Ryu asks the elder if there is no other way to get out into the city. The granddaughter says that you need to send someone along with the guy. The elder confirms the words of his granddaughter and says that it will be safer this way. Suddenly, a Fenrir grandmother turns to her husband with a question about whether they do not have a suitable candidate in the pack. The girl is very glad to see her grandmother. The elder's wife turns to him and asks if he really does not trust the man so much. The elder agrees with the opinion of the Fenrir grandmother. The elder turns to Ryu and offers to introduce him to a dwarf. After all, dwarves are very skilled and, moreover, very strong. If you provide them with the right materials, they'll be able to sew clothes. The elder has a dwarf acquaintance in the kingdom. If Ryu turns to him and tells him that he is from the Fenrir elder, then the dwarf will definitely help him. Ryu thanks the elder with a smile. The Fenrir leader objected to the elder, because Ryu would meet a lot of people on the way to the city. The elder turns to the leader and says with a smile that in this case, he will send his daughter along with Ryu. Everyone was obviously surprised by this proposal. The elder realizes that it's time for his granddaughter to see the big world. Besides, he trusts Ryu. The guy doesn't mind his partner at all. The Fenrir girl was embarrassed and turned away from Ryu. The leader forbade his daughter to go out into the world, especially with Ryu. As a friend, he got a slap on the chin from his wife. The mother asked what the problem is, because Ryu treats her daughter quite nicely. Grandma sat on the sidelines and held her words. Ryu thought for a second about the extent to which the Fenrir liked him so much. The elder turns to Ryu before he leaves. He's going to teach the guy some magic. and he can get money from selling the extracted materials. Ryu was very worried at first, but now he is very happy. He is very interested in what awaits them on the way. Grandma Fenrir asks Ryu if he remembered everything and took it with him. Ryu agrees, and not far from them, the mother still calms her husband, the leader of the Fenrir. Thanks to the elder, he learned a lot about the materials and learned the magic of the vault. Now he needs to get to the land of the dwarves. Ryu turns around and asks where his companion is. Fenrir's grandmother asks him to wait a bit, and then he will be very surprised. The elder approaches the guy and thanks him for waiting. A slender and beautiful girl with wolf ears stands next to the elder. She looks at Ryu in embarrassment, waiting for his reaction. The guy was shocked and immediately noticed the beauty of the girl. He wonders where she came from. The girl covers her mouth with her hand and presses her ears to the back of her head. She asks Ryu's impression of her. Rhea does not immediately understand how the girl knows him and why her voice seems so familiar. Ryo guesses who it is, and the girl holds her grandmother's paw. She is extremely happy that she succeeded. Grandma praises her granddaughter because now no one recognizes her from people. Ryu remembers that after the battle with the demonic rooster, he sees a girl. The guy guesses that it was her. The girl explains that in fact, she's been training for a long time. It was all because she wanted to travel with Ryu. Previously, the girl could not maintain his appearance normally, but thanks to the advice of her mother and grandmother, she coped with everything. Suddenly, the elder appears next to the guy and wants to express his request to him. He wants Ryu to give his granddaughter a name. The guy was shocked by this request. Ryu asks the elder if he wants the guy to sign a contract with his granddaughter. The elder agrees. He thinks that the guy will be able to do it. It turns out that the guy has to give her a name and sign a familiar contract with the girl. There are advantages to this contract. For example, telepathy. Basically, this is not a bad offer for a guy at all. Grandma Fenrir explains that Ryu has no reason to worry. Her granddaughter wants it too. The grandmother continues and says that her granddaughter is in debt to the guy. That's why she asks him to give her a name. Grandma says that she and her granddaughter have been together for a long time, and she can safely trust the guy. Besides, my granddaughter doesn't mind either. At this time, the Fenrir girl calmly bowed her head and waited for the guy's answer. The guy agrees to sign a contract with Fenrir. Grandma wants around and thanks the guy for his consent. Ryu looks at the girl. She stands right in front of him and looks at him. The eagle suggests starting. The girl agrees, and the guy stretches out his palm to the girl's forehead. The guy thinks that now he has to offer a contract, and she accepts it. After that, you need to give the new name of the familiar. Light is emitted from the guy's hand, which illuminates all the features of the girl's face. When the magic has reached its concentration between two people, the guy pronounces the name Lear. He opens his eyes and says that he is finished. The girl looks away and repeats her new name. Ryu was worried, because he thought that she would not like the name Lear. He thought it would be quite suitable for her. The girl smiles and closes her eyes with pleasure. She talks about how she likes her name and thanks the guy. He breathes a sigh of relief and a smile on his face. Grandfather Fenrir approaches from the side. The elder of the pack asks if everything was successful. The guy agrees. Suddenly, Lear grabs Ryu's hand and asks him to start the journey. The girl leads the guy and says goodbye to her grandfather, grandmother, and her mother, somewhere in the distance. Her father reminded himself with displeasure. Because her daughter did not say goodbye to him, the guys started traveling together. Lear saw a lot of different beautiful landscapes. She was amazed by the view of the mountains, the taste of the barbecue that was prepared for her. And it must have been very pleasant for her to fall asleep on the guy's shoulder when they were sitting around the campfire. The girl turns to the guy and asks him about the dwarf country. Ryu explains that this is a settlement near the mines. There are a lot of skilled craftsmen there, where you can find a bunch of great armor and weapons. To all the information and explanation about armor and weapons, the guy adds words that they will be there soon. A guy friend turns to Lear and asks about something. Doesn't the girl feel like she's standing too close to the guy? She wrapped her hand around the guy's arm with her palms and pressed herself close to him. Ryu remembers that Lear didn't stick to him so much in the forest. The girl explains that she could not do this in front of all her relatives. She mentions that she has long wanted to flirt with a guy like this. Ryu looks at the girl thoughtfully and after a couple of minutes patted her on the head, he thinks, who can she be so spoiled for? The guy sets foot on an unknown land. There was a huge wall in front of him and Lear. She reached an incredible height. They arrived at the place. The girl started forward and asked Ryu to go quickly. The guy called out to her and asked her to wait. He wants the girl to take the form of a wolf. Lear is interested in why this guy needed such a scenario. Ryu shows her card and explains that the girl does not have it. You must show your card to everyone at the entrance. And in human form, the Lear cannot be missed. But in the form of a wolf, she will be considered a familiar, and the card will not be required. The girl quickly transformed into Fenrir. She clearly doesn't mind taking on her appearance again. The guy was glad that Lear did not object and they set off again. The guy stood behind one person and asked him if it was really a queue to enter the city. The man turns around and confirms Ryu's words. It turned out to be a blonde guy with freckles on his face. He asks Ryu if this is his first time here. Ryu agrees and says that he would like to sell materials from monsters and buy new clothes in the city. The guy says that this city is perfect for Ryu because there are many skilled craftsmen here. Suddenly, a new acquaintance was called by the guards to go further in turn. The guy bows in farewell and says that his name is Mac. It turned out that Mac was a merchant, and maybe they would meet Ryu again. Ryu introduces himself in response and says that he is very pleased to meet you. Then it's the guy's turn. There is a knight sitting in a small window who asks the purpose of Ryu's arrival in the city. Ryu holds out his card and explains that he just wanted to sell materials to buy new clothes. The knight asks if he's registered with the merchant guild guy. Ryu says that he is not registered with the guild because he was thinking of selling to the adventurers guild. The guard understands everything and, as a precaution, asks to be allowed to look at the materials brought by the guy. Ryu agrees and spreads out his materials in front of the guard. Suddenly, the man was very surprised and asked the guy to wait a little on the spot. In the distance, the guy was discussing the product with someone else. He returns, thanks Ryu for waiting. Suddenly, a man in aristocratic clothes approaches the guy and introduces himself as an employee of the guild. The man looks serious and asks Ryu about the opportunity to talk to him. And now Ryu is already sitting opposite the man in a stone room with a fireplace. The man asks Ryu if he can buy these skins from him. Ryu is very surprised by the request. The man explains his request by saying that these are materials of excellent quality, and they are quite rare to find in the markets. The guy didn't think that it was really such a rare and valuable material. He still thinks that it is better to show them to the master first. The man, noticing the guy's confusion, asks if the guy won't let him buy these materials. Ryu is assured that this is not what he wanted to say at all, because he was just heading to a certain familiar master. A man is interested in which master the guy is going to, if it's not a secret. Ryu replies that the master he went to is named Dovar Crown. After hearing the name, the guard and the man had an ecstatic expression on their faces. There was an awkward silence in the room. The guy didn't understand what had happened to them. He had already thought that this was Dovar Crown, some kind of criminal. Ryu asked the man if this master was really that famous. The guy begins to justify himself by saying that he was recommended by a friend, and Ryu has never seen him personally. The man takes a regretful look on his face and repeats the guy's words. He explains that Dovar Crown is the king of this country. Ryu's face abruptly changes from relaxed and serene to shocking. He clearly did not expect to hear the position of king in his master. Here they are, along with Lear, already walking along the road. Suddenly the wolf turns to Ryu and mentally asks him what they will do now. Ryu was scared because he had completely forgotten that now he and Lear can communicate telepathically. The guy responds and says that he's thinking of meeting the king, but it will be very problematic. To begin with, he offers Lear to sell the materials. Suddenly they go further down the road. The main character thinks about where the guild is. They meet one friend. As it turned out, this is Mac, who was already waving his hand at them in greeting. Ryu came closer to Mac and asked if the kid was really waiting for them. An acquaintance confirmed it. He said that he was already starting to worry because the guys had been away for a long time. Ryu puts his hand behind his head and apologizes to a new acquaintance. He explains that the verification of the material took longer than expected. Ryu asks Mac if he knows where the guild is located. The guy agrees and says that he is also interested in the guy's materials. It shows the direction where you need to go. As it turned out, they were very close. They go into the same place. Mac explains that guilds need to constantly report on the completion of tasks, so they decided to build it closer to the entrance. It was a fairly spacious room with a large counter where employees received a task report. Mac leads the guy to the counter. He explains that everything is divided into 3 stages here. Ryu just wants to sell the materials, so he needs to go to a separate stage. The girl behind the counter greets Ryu. She politely asks to post the materials that the guy wants to sell the tincture. The guy agrees and thinks that it's better for him to sell materials from wheat monsters for now. And the materials of excellent quality are better left for the king. The guy puts all the skins on the table, which makes a pretty big mountain of skins. Suddenly, the girl ran away and asked the guy to wait. And Mac, who was standing behind Ryu, asked in surprise where he got so much material from. All the men and women who were nearby were surprised by such a picture. After all, this is a rather rare material, besides of good quality. Some speculated that the guy had just demonstrated the magic of the vault. Ryu began to justify himself by saying that it was simply the skin of wild boars. Mac countered that it wasn't that simple. Mac explains that the huge boar is an A-rank monster, also about wild boars. The main character apparently heard this information for the first time, because he lived in the forest and did not know it. The girl runs up to the counter again and apologizes for the guy's long waits. She says that the guild is ready to offer 62 gold coins for these skins. This money can be enough for a lifetime, according to the guy. Ryu says that he will certainly have enough of this money. The girl makes a bow and thanks the guy for the successful deal. The girl takes out a bag of money at the reception desk and pushes it towards the guy. The stacks of coins glittered brightly and were embarrassing in their appearance. Mac says that he has never seen such a lot of money. Adventurers in the area also praise Ryu for such a successful deal. Others thought he was cool, because such money can only be seen from aristocrats or S-rank adventurers. Ryu begins to realize that all the monsters he defeated were very strong. Suddenly, Lear begins a telepathic dialogue. She confirms the guy's thoughts that the defeated monsters are very strong. She is proud that the guy trained in their forest. The guy calms down and wonders why the girl is so proud. The guy takes a bag of money. They got the money. Now they can go to the king. Travelers hope that they will not encounter any problems. A huge road of countless steps led to the king. As soon as they reached the castle, they were greeted by a huge arch and a stone wall consisting of columns. The king sits on the throne. A guard runs up to him and says that they have a problem. The king is wondering what happened. The guardian immediately kneels down on one knee and says that he has very important news. The guardian immediately reports that a man has recently appeared in the city who would like to meet with the king. He looks like an ordinary peasant. However, he brought the skin of A-rank monsters. The guard considers this character very suspicious and asks the king what they should do. The king remained silent for a while and soon agreed. He ordered this stranger to be brought to him. The king said that this man would be useful to him and the guards should not let him leave. Ryu and Lear stop to rest. A woman comes into the room and hands the guy's things. She says that she washed everything and sewed up all the holes. The guy accepts his clothes and sincerely thanks the woman. He apologizes for having to use her shirt. The woman asks with displeasure about what the guy was doing, because his clothes were very shabby. She remembers that when the guy came, she thought that he was some kind of tramp. The guy pretended it was a joke and laughed awkwardly. You can't say that he trains in the forest with Fenrir. Lear mentally asks the guy if they will go to the castle today. The guy agrees, because the guards promised them about it yesterday. As it turned out, yesterday the guards caught the guys in front of the entrance. And now the whole guild has learned that they are going to the king. The guy gathered his resolve. He is now firmly convinced that he will go to the king. Ryo is already in the palace. He stands in front of huge carved doors. A large arch and a corridor with columns lead to them. Almost every column has a guard. Suddenly, one of the guards says that the king is waiting for the guy. Ryu walks along the room and wonders where the guards are from and what they are here for. Ryuji begins to think that the king wants to greet them like that. 2 guards open the big doors in front of the guy and ask him to behave more respectfully. Doors open in front of your face, and bright rays seem to pour out of them. The guy finds himself in front of the king, who is sitting on the throne. To emphasize the status of the king, his throne is located on an elevation of several steps. The king looked at the guy. Ryu realized that this dwarf was very strong. The guy learned to feel it when he fought strong monsters. According to the strength of the king, he can be compared to monsters of the highest rank. The guy remembers that it's worth behaving more modestly. He kneels and greets the king. Ryu introduces himself as a mentor. The king narrates that his people reported that the guy had arrived in the city in order to sell materials and buy clothes. The guy agrees and points to his product. He wants to continue, but the king interrupts him and asks him to answer the question. The king, with a stern look, asks the guy whether the guy stole this leather or not. The guy was unexpectedly surprised by such a question. He refuses and says that he got this skin on the hunt. Ryu thinks about what went wrong, which made the king think he was some kind of thief. The king thought for a while. He takes a closer look and says that even from here he can see that these are excellent materials. He asks Ryu if he got it from hunting in the Great Forest, because he is just a mentor. The king asked the guy to talk nonsense because annoying Fenrir live in that forest. The guy was a little confused after such words from the king. He thinks that the king doesn't know Granny. Ryu understands that it is worth keeping silent about this for now. Still, the guy apologizes and says that he came to the king with a request on the recommendation of a friend. The king is interested in who this acquaintance is and clarifies the guy's question. Ryu says that this friend has no name. This is an ordinary huntress. The king turns away and can't believe the guy's words. Lear telepathically informs the guy that the eagle is quite rude. Ryu says that the wolf needs to calm down. The guy realizes that something is wrong here. Although Grandma said that they had known the king for a long time, but he did not seem to remember her. Besides, there are a lot of armed soldiers nearby. The king is absolutely sure that the guy is just lying to his face. Rhea thinks that it might be worth asking the king directly. The king strokes his beard and agrees. He offers the guy to discuss all the conditions. The king offers to make equipment for the guy. And as payment, the guy has to leave the skins behind him. The king wanted to say something else about the skins, but the guy got up from his knee and said that he did not agree to such conditions. The king wrinkled his nose and did not believe in such behavior of the guy. He screams and is firmly convinced that he will not give the king the skin. The king made a face full of contempt and asked what it could mean. Ryu explains that he has a feeling that he cannot trust the king. He says goodbye to him and says that despite his status, he does not want to bargain with such a person. Suddenly, after the guard immediately attacked the guy, Ryu finally became convinced that it was not worth telling the king anything. At this time, the old man cringed from the tension and after a moment shouted at the top of his voice that the guy was insolent. The king gave the order to capture the guy and the Lear, and immediately the guards surrounded the travelers with spears. Lear says that she can do something about it. However, Ryu strictly forbade it because if you attack the king, then they will not take problems. The king asks the guy if he will resist before. Ryu explains that with this arrangement, he cannot defeat the force. The king grins and realizes that the guy has made a wise decision and gives the order to take him to the dungeon. The guard tells the guy to come in and pushes him forward. Ryu and Lear ended up in a dungeon. Ryu puts his hand behind his head and gets upset that all his skin has been taken away. Lear looks at the guy reproachfully and says that they should have fought back in that case. The guy explains to the girl that in this case, they would have earned a lot of enemies, and they would have been thrown out of the country. Besides, the king could turn against the elder. Now Lear understands the importance of the situation. Fortunately for the guy, the Fang remained with him. It's a good thing the soldiers didn't search him. Only the guy is distracted by some man behind him. Ryu was so scared that his soul sank into his heels. The man sitting behind asked the guy what he was imprisoned for. Ryu is surprised that there was someone else in the cell with him because the man was sitting so quietly that he was not noticeable at all. The guy explains that he refused to sell the skin to the king. The dwarf inhales and realizes that this reason is not significant at all. Ryu wonders why there is a man here. Men take a serious look and utter only one word: treason. In short, the man tried to dissuade the king from hunting monsters in the Great Forest. Even if they collected all the heads in the kingdom, they would not be able to defeat the Fenrir. Everything is clear to Ryu now. That's why the king wanted his skin so badly. But it is still unwise to send them to prison for such a thing. Ryu says out loud the thought that the king turned out to be quite short-tempered. The guy thinks that since the man knows the elder, he must be an amazing dwarf. However, the man says that their king is the one who planted the guy. Ryu does not hide his surprise. After that, the dwarf explains that this is the younger brother of their king, whose name is Dwarf. Ryu was shocked by this information. As it turned out, Dwarf gathered his close soldiers and seized the throne. He looks very much like their king, so no one noticed the substitution. But when the dwarf heard about the plan of attack on the Great Forest, he immediately understood everything. Ryu asks about where the real king is now. The dwarf explains that he is currently in solitary confinement. Unlike them, the real king sits behind a huge iron door. But so that he could not get out, a curse was placed on the room. It's pretty strict. The guy understands now that the elder was talking about the elder brother. I need to get my older brother out and tell him everything. Ryu says that he understood everything and encourages Lear to go with him. He is grateful for her help. The man is surprised to ask the main character if he really wants to escape from here. After all, this is impossible, and even a dwarf cannot break this lattice. The guy confidently walks towards the bars with Lear. He admits that nothing is impossible for them. He swings with all his might, hitting the iron bars with Fenrir's fang. They were broken into several pieces in them. The dwarf who was sitting against the wall was shocked by such a picture. An unknown guy and a wolf stood in front of him. The man asks about who they are. Ryu extends a helping hand to the dwarf. He introduces himself by being a mentor, and the wolf next to him is his familiar. The dwarf understands everything and accepts the guy's help. They walk down the corridor. Only pieces of iron bars remained in their place. It seems that they are in place. The guy is peeking around the corner. There are only 2 guards at the iron door, which is cursed. The dwarf asks if the guy can really help their king. Ryu explains that he has business with their real king, so he will certainly help them. Ryu cautiously asks the dwarf if he can fight. The dwarf proudly declares that his profession is a warrior. But first he needs to get a weapon. The guy happily comes out of the corner and says that in this case, they will go ahead, and the dwarf will have to cover them. The guard had just managed to wake up when he suddenly saw 2 silhouettes that were rapidly flying at him. Suddenly, the guards began to literally shout that they were not allowed here. The guy did not pay attention to these screams and mentally asked Lear not to get rid of the guards. Lear needs to try to knock them out without causing much harm. Lear understands the guy's instructions and began to act. At this time, one of the guards swung his spear, but the main character still managed to jump away. Ryu realizes that compared to the Fenrir, the guards move very slowly. Their movements are very easy to read. Ryu is confident that they will win. He attacks one guard from behind. Suddenly, one of the guards swings his sword at the wolf with the words that he will deal with him with 1 blow. Suddenly, he looks at his sword, the blade of which was no longer there. As it turned out, Lear managed to see through his sword and deprive him of his weapon. At this moment, Ryu moves closer to the guard and says that he is moving too slowly. The guy attacks the guard with his foot. The guards were neutralized. Ryu shouts to the dwarf that they are done. The dwarf approaches the guys. He is genuinely surprised that the guy was able to crack down, because their soldiers are not weaklings. Ryu explains this by saying that he has been training a lot. The guy asks what they will do with the door. Ryu taps her finger on the door. He understands that she is strong, so there is also a curse on her. It was made so that it was simply impossible to escape from the inside. However, the curse does not work on people from the outside. Ryu arms himself with the Fenrir Elder's blade again and swings it with all his might. As a result, the door with a curse was broken into small pieces. The king is sitting by the wall. He just looks up at the newcomers and asks who they are. Ryu comes closer and holds out his hand. He says it's nice to meet you. The guy introduces himself by name and calls his profession. He asks the dwarf if he is the king of the dwarfs. Dovar. The dwarf confirms and asks the guy how they got here. Ryu says with a grin that his brother helped with this. The king lowers his head and apologizes for his stupid brother. Ryu kneels down next to him and says that the king should not apologize because he has a request to Dovar. Ryu asks if the king can make equipment for him. The king does not understand this request and asks why he should do this. Ryu explains that Fenrir most likely recommended the king, praising his skill. Suddenly, the king got angry and said that this simply could not be. After all, Fenrir have never contacted a human, and asked the guy to tell him the truth. In that case, Ryu asked to be allowed to prove his words. He takes the fang of the elder Fenrir and asks Lear to transform into her human form. The girl transforms and becomes like a human. The king was amazed to see the magic of the transformation of the Fenrir. Ryu introduces the girl as the elder's granddaughter. The guy gives the king a fang and asks him to look at it. The king understands that the guy is not lying. He apologizes for the distrust and says that he will fulfill the guy's request. The guy is immensely glad that the king agreed to help him. The king explains this by saying that he cannot simply refuse a Fenrir friend, and as an apology asks to be allowed to make something out of this fang. Suddenly, the king, like a small child, glares at the fangs of the elders of the Fenrir. He says that it will be just a legendary weapon, and he will create a real masterpiece. After all, such a chance comes only once in a lifetime, and he will not allow anyone else to touch this trophy. The king kneels down and asks to be allowed to make a weapon for this guy. The guy is a little perplexed by such a picture, because he did not expect such a reception. Since he knows the elder, he will have to let the king make him a weapon. The guy says with a smile that he relies on the king. The king nods his head and thanks for the opportunity. Ryu understands that he still needs to deal with the king's brother. However, regaining the throne will not be as easy as it seems. The king reassures the guys because the throne still belongs to him. The king will gather loyal people to present evidence of Dorf's treason. The guys started to leave here, but Ryu clenches his hands into fists and asks why they don't overthrow the Lion King. It seems that a counterattack is being planned. Ryu and Lear approach another prison room. A group of dwarves stands aside from them and watches what is happening. Ryu arms himself with the fang of the Fenrir elder and, swinging a couple of times, cuts through the iron bars of the cage. The guy urges the dwarves, whom he freed, to go. Ryu comes closer to one of the prisoners and asks if he is all right. The dwarf hesitantly agrees. The guy turns around and addresses the king. He asks if he has freed everyone and if anyone else needs help. The king thanked the guy for helping to free all his subordinates. Ryu is immensely pleased with this turn of events. Now he is determined to overthrow the Lion King along with his new associates. Suddenly, the king, noticing this excessive determination, says that the guy does not need to go against the Lion King at all. The king explains that he got into the situation only because he relaxed his vigilance. The dwarf urges Ryu to let him handle this on his own. The king clenches his hand into a fist in front of his chest. He considers it his duty, as an older brother, to reason with his younger relative. Ryu noticed all the worries and even some guilt in the king. He agreed with Mr. Dovar and asked him to be careful. The king told the guy that if he and Lear turned left, they could find a hidden passage that led outside. When Mr. Dovar finishes his business, he will contact Ryu. The king, after finishing the conversation with the guy, decided to raise the morale of his subordinates. Mr. Dovar raised his hand up and called on his associates to return the throne to the true ruler. Ryu just stared after the furiously departing crowd. The guy suggested that Lear return to the hotel. The girl agreed. The guys are following the path that Mr. Dovar told them about. The guy says that they need to turn left. Suddenly, Lear notices something strange. The girl's ears turn from side to side to better catch the source of the sound. Lear asks Ryu if he has heard anything. The guy refuses. Lear's ears begin to react again to the barely audible sound that reached the girl a few moments ago. Lear found the voice quite familiar. Ryu was already worried and asked the girl if it could be a monster. However, Deer is not quite sure, but she pointed out the exact direction from which the sound came. Ryu walked to the corner, and after a couple of moments jumped out from behind it, holding the fang of the Fenrir elder in his hands. As it turned out, there was a baby bird lying on the ground. He clearly didn't have the strength even to keep himself on his paws. It seems that he was on his last legs. The girl is interested in how the chick ended up here. Ryu suggests that the chick could just get lost here because it looks pretty weak. Ryu stretches her palm towards the chick to check its condition. Suddenly, the chick notices this out of the corner of its eye and begins to squeak loudly. During the squeak, quite large flames were released from its beak, which almost hit Ryu and Lear. The guy was genuinely surprised that this chicken can breathe fire. However, Lear says that this is not surprising, because it is not an animal, but a monster. The chicken begins to squeak capriciously, and more flames appear from its beak. Ryu tries to calm him down by holding out his palms in front of him, and says that he is not an enemy to the creature. The chicken squeaked for the last time and fell down. Ryu wondered what the problem might be. After all, he does not see any external damage. The guy picked up the chicken in his arms. Lear assumed that he was hungry because when she was hungry, she also felt weak. Ryu rummaged in his pockets for food. But at the moment, he remembered that all their belongings had been confiscated. Ryu suggests that Lear take the chicken with her and continue to get out of the dungeon. The guy promises to get the creature something edible as soon as they get out of this place. The guys successfully got out of the dungeon. They are sitting outside at a table near the hotel. Lear and Ryu were able to get food for the chicken. He enthusiastically ate what was so kindly given to him. Ryu grins and notices that despite its small size, the chicken is for 3. Lear notices that he now looks healthy. Ryu agrees with the girl and picks up the chicken. The guy holds out his palms with the chicken forward so that it can take off and go home. Instead of flying away, the chicken turns to Ryu and after another squeak begins to caress his palm. Lear notices that the chicken has become attached to the guy. Ryu agrees with this observation of the girl. Lear asks Ryu if he wants to sign a contract with the monster. The guy explains to the girl that he did not save the creature for this reason at all. However, Ryu believes that if the chicken wants to be near him, he will not mind at all. The guy turns to the chicken and asks him if he wants to sign a contract with him. Lear was clearly displeased with this remark and, after looking at him reproachfully, turned away. She reminded the guy that she was following him too. Ryu wonders what the girl is thinking. The guy, without thinking twice, offers to relax at the hotel today and tomorrow go to King Dovar's palace. It was a sunny morning. The bright rays were already illuminating the room with might and main and did not allow the guy to sleep even an extra minute. Ryu wrinkles his nose because he doesn't understand why it's so hard for him. The guy had a feeling that something heavy was pressing on his stomach. Ryu lifts the upper part of the body and rubs his eyes, thinking that maybe Lear climbed onto the bed. As it turned out, instead of liars, a huge bird was lying on the bed, preventing Ryu from sleeping peacefully. The guy looks at the bird with some bewilderment. After he realized something, he still didn't want to believe his eyes. Ryu screamed and woke up Lear. The girl, rubbing her eyes, asked why the guy was screaming. Ryu pointed his finger at the bird with some hysteria and asked Lear to look at it. Lear immediately recognizes the bird as yesterday's chicken, which they rescued in the dungeon and then tamed. Ryu clarifies this with the girl and asks about why the creature has become so big. Lear explains that the monster must have significantly increased its strength. By absorbing magical energy, monsters are able to evolve. Ryu couldn't even suspect such a thing. Lear thought again, because such events happen very rarely. The girl believes that this baby could be someone. Lear does not have time to finish when suddenly there is a loud knock on the door in the room. It turned out that soldiers had come for Ryu. The bird was greatly frightened by the unexpected sound. The bird jumped up and spread its wings in an instant. After a couple of seconds, she fluttered up and hurriedly flew out the window. A maid enters the room and urges Ryu to answer, since he has already woken up. Ryu and Lear only had time to look at the trail of the flying bird. As it turned out, Ryu is being summoned to the king. The king is already waiting for the guy. Ryu and Lear come closer to the throne and greet his majesty. The king says that he is glad to see the guy. Ryu asks King Dovar if he has dealt with his younger brother. The king agrees and says that it all happened thanks to Ryu. However, the king expressed his desire for Ryu to talk to someone before he starts equipping and making weapons for the guy. Suddenly, the king rudely addressed a silhouette that stood at the steps leading to the throne and ordered him to talk to Ryu. As it turned out, the silhouette turned out to be the king's younger brother, Dwarf. He folded his hands in front of him and addressed Mr. Ryu and Mrs. Lear. The king's younger brother abruptly falls to his knees and bows his head in front of the guy. He offers his sincere apologies. Ryu agrees and notices that Dwarf seems to have become a different person. After that, Lear looks out from behind the guy and asks Dwarf about why he decided to pretend to be the king. Dwarf, with a feeling of shame, began to talk about how he had always envied his older brother. After all, Dwarf's brother is a famous master all over the world. Everyone in the neighborhood was talking about his brother, and the youngest was not even trusted with materials. The younger brother admits to everyone present here that he was greatly offended by this arrangement. Dwarf admits that one day he will lure his brother into a trap and put him in a car. Having taken the place of the king, the younger brother had access to all the materials of the country. Dwarf could get everything he wanted. Dwarf explains that then Ryu and Lear appeared. The king's younger brother, at first glance at the materials obtained by the guy, realized that Ryu had brought a first-class A-rank product that could not be found anywhere in the country. Dwarf admits that when he heard that the guy has the profession of a mentor, He immediately realized that it would be easier to take away materials from Ryu. However, as the Lion King recalls, the guy refused to sell the materials. Dwarf then realized that Ryu had figured him out and made a terrible mistake, as he could not control himself at that moment. The younger brother bows his head to the guy for the last time and asks for forgiveness. Ryu understands everything and forgives Dwarf. Suddenly, King Devar himself joins his younger brother's apologies. He sincerely asks to forgive his brother and asks Ryu to listen to one request. King Devar, full of seriousness, asks Ryu to let Dwarf make equipment for the guy. The younger brother was extremely surprised by the king's proposal. After a moment, Dwarf objected to his brother, but they were interrupted by Ryu. He asks the reason for the king's request. King Devar explains that he is still able to create the strongest weapons, but his brother is much better when it comes to creating equipment. The king clenches his hand into a fist and says that this will be their redemption, the memories of the king. The first brother wipes the sweat from his forehead. He is tired of the hard work he had to do. And at the same time, another brother is examining a precious dagger that seems to sparkle in his eyes. He and his brother used to do everything together, but then he started moving away and taking all the orders for himself. He deprived his brother of the opportunity to develop, and then did not understand that it would hurt his brother so much. He waved goodbye to him. Dwarf, looking at him, was upset. The present, the king and his brother standing with Lear and Ryu in the middle of the corridor. The king thinks that if he had not done so, they could have avoided this conflict. And as an older brother, he failed. Dwarf tries to reason with his older brother and say that this is not the case. However, the king does not listen to him and says that he vouches for his skills and asks if Mr. Ryu can satisfy one of his requests. Then Lear called his name, and he, realizing what she was getting at, says that he relies on the king's younger brother. The king thanks Ryu, but his brother does not understand why he agreed. The gentleman explains that he could not refuse the services of two of the best craftsmen in the country, and if they create equipment and weapons of the highest quality, then there will be no problems. The king asks if Dwarf has understood everything exactly. The younger brother still can't believe it, because he has done so much evil, and asks the older brother if everything is really okay. His older brother suggests that he create the best equipment in the world for Ryu, if he really regrets what he did. In addition, he has always praised himself as a great master and asked to prove it by deed, and not to fall into the dirt. And he asks Dwarf not to let him down, because it will cost him his reputation. And also try to do their job to the maximum, like in the good old days when they did everything together. The king holds out his hand to him. He shakes it in return, and tears begin to roll from his younger brother's eyes with joy. Dwarf deftly raises his brother's hand, and then says that of course he will create the best equipment in this country. Ryu has been watching them for a while, and getting into their conversation, he says that he is glad, because the brothers have finally reconciled. The king apologizes to him for having to wait. But once the problems are sorted out, it's time to move on. Sometime later, a small village. Tia says that they have not returned to this place for a long time. She added that for sure a crowd of residents will gather. The guy next to her says she's a hero after all, and it's no wonder everyone loves her. He wants to meet Ryu as soon as possible and asks the girl to speed up, because they have been friends with him for a long time, and they have not seen each other for so long. She agrees with Taiga and hopes that everything is fine with the guy, because they want to discuss a lot of things with him. But when they get closer to the house, they see that it has been destroyed. Anyone could approach and examine all the inside of the house. Both heroes are in shock and do not understand what to do, because when they left home, everything was fine. A guard approaches them and, calling them heroes, asks why they are here. The girl tried to tell him about Ryu, but she couldn't formulate a sentence. She only cares about what happened to Ryu and where he is. The guy asked Tia to calm down and not to panic ahead of time. He explained to the guard that their friend's house was here, and asked him to tell him what happened to him, because everything was fine before he left. The man says their friend is missing. They stand and stare at him in shock, not knowing what to say. This news was unexpected for them. Tia doesn't understand how he could have disappeared. And Taiga, in turn, asks how long he has been gone. He tells him that it has been about 2 months, and one night the man heard a loud noise, and when he came running, the house was already destroyed and he did not have time to do anything. The guy asks the guard if he has any guesses why Ryu left. But he has no idea, because he doesn't read his mind. He works so hard every day, and besides, he helped everyone with the cattle, that no one really expected to see him missing. The guard says with regret on his face that when they started searching, they found only scraps of wool in the house. And he doesn't think it's the hair of a simple animal, and it was probably a monster that took him away. The girl's face changes instantly. Tia abruptly turns around and goes to her horse, saying that she is going in search of the main character. Taiga wants to stop the girl because they still have a mission. She tells him that she will look for Ryu, while not forgetting about the mission, so the guy has nothing to worry about. But Taiga tells her that she doesn't know where to look, but she doesn't care, and she will look for him everywhere, and declares that Ryu should wait for her because she will definitely find him and will not let him die. Meanwhile, in the place where Ryu is located, he suddenly sneezes after mentioning Tia, and Lear, standing next to him, wonders if he is ill. The rescue operation has begun. The king's younger brother is actively working on creating weapons in his anvil, and those present are watching him from the sidelines. And when everyone in the room sees that he ultimately failed to melt this material, they sigh in despair. And Ryu draws conclusions and begins to explain to him that this material does not melt, and maybe he should try again. However, Dorf's face shows sadness and disappointment, and he says that he has already tried to melt it dozens of times, but to no avail. Now, Ryu realizes that it's probably not that easy to melt it down, and this fang is too strong. Dorf reflects that since this is the fang of Fenrir, then a flame with a power comparable to that of an elder can melt it. Ryu doesn't understand if such a flame really exists, which can be compared to the flame of Fenrir. The girl with the cat ears remembers something, and he asks what they think about the Garda flame. The hero, standing in disbelief, asks the question she just asked. One of the brothers gets into the conversation and does not understand what kind of hail it is, and does she really mean the legendary bird? And another brother heard that Na has the power to kill dragons. But the elder one wonders if these are not just children's fairy tales. And did they really see her, since they offer to use the guard? Then the girl turns to the guy and asks if he still understood what she means, and he explains that they found a baby bird in the dungeon. Now Ryu gets it, and he's surprised that it was guard. The girl says that with the help of his magic, he was able to grow noticeably, and ordinary monsters will not be able to grow like that overnight, because only high-ranking monsters are capable of such a thing. So she is sure that it was hail. The older brother then asks them where he is. Ryu tries to explain where he is now, but Dorf concluded that he had flown away. Then the king reasons that most likely he may be on the mountain behind the castle. Dorf asks his brother if he is sure of this, because it has been a long time since he left. But he explains to him that they have no other choice, and only Guard will be able to create a powerful enough flame to melt the fang. The brothers ask Mr. Ryu to go in search of him, because they cannot leave the castle unattended, and they feel guilty about it. He tells them that they can rely on him and not worry. Sometime later, the girl and the guy are in the desert. Although the main character promised the brothers that he would find him, but Guard was not so easy to find. The guy thinks that he said it too presumptuously, to which the girl replied that maybe he was right. However, when Guard felt the mana of the main character, he should immediately fly to him, since he remembered him. Ryu never imagined that he would turn out to be a bait. The main character tells her to go look somewhere else, because there are still many places where they haven't been and haven't looked. The girl's ears react to some kind of sound, and she asks him to stop, because Lear heard voices from the other side. They turn around and see that the little bird is trying to escape and not fall into the mouth of the monster. And at the same time, the monster is chasing him. The heroes realize that it is he, Guard. But the girl notices that he is somehow strangely flapping his wings and cannot really run. Ryu says that he is most likely injured and asks Lear to hurry up. The girl says that she understood everything and they are rushing to his aid. The monster came close to the little chick and was about to attack him, but Lear stops the monster in time. She asks the main character if Guard is okay. Ryu examines the bird and says that he does not see any external damage, but this does not mean that he is completely healthy. They decide to return to the castle and talk about the flame they need to melt the fang later. And then after a while, they are all in the castle. Guard is lying unconscious on a pillow and gaining strength. Ryu did not expect that the bird would be much closer than he had expected, and this surprised him. And he thought that Guard would fly much further away. And Lear suggests that maybe he doesn't have parents. The main character asks Lear if she really thinks that's why he was alone in the dungeon, and not for some other reason. The girl says that he doesn't have a place to go back to, so he couldn't fly far away from them. Everything becomes clear to Ryu. The king enters the room and asks the main character about the condition of the guard. He tells him that he's fine and he's just a little tired, so now guard needs to be given some time to rest. Only Ryu can't be 100% sure if he will help them. The bird starts to wake up slowly. The guy notices it, and he is interested in the condition of the guard, and then says that he can rest a little more. The bird did not expect to see so many people after its awakening. Therefore, she immediately flies to Ryu and clings to his shoulder and, speaking in her bird language, talks about something. The main character asks if he is still afraid of people, and asks him not to do it, and calms him down, saying that it's safe here and he has nothing to worry about, so he can relax. The girl looks at them for a while, and then he asks if the main character wants to sign a contract with guard. Ryu did not expect to hear such words and does not understand why he would do this. Lara explains that if it happens that they will not be around, then trouble may happen to the bird. And in any case, he needs a person he can rely on. And in this case, the best solution would be a contract. Ryu says that the contract is certainly a good idea, but wants to let Guard make his own decisions. Ryu asks Garda if he wants to sign a contract with him, because he would really use his strength. But if he doesn't want that, he can safely fly away and still, he wants to hear his answer. So he asks what he would choose. Everyone present is watching the guy and the bird. The latter looks attentively at the main character. The guard flaps its wings and lifts off the ground. The guy is carefully watching his actions, being in a little shock. The bird sits on his shoulder, as if agreeing to his proposal, and happily speaks to him in its bird language. Ryu can't believe it and asks if he is sure of his decision. The bird squeaks, thereby confirming his decision once again. Lear praises the guy for being able to sign a contract with the legendary bird because it's so difficult. He thanks her and asks her what to call him. Dwarf, standing nearby, wonders if he really wants to make contact with Guard. The king, in turn, says that this is a very rare opportunity and suggests that they continue this in the city square because there are beautiful views. Sometime later, all four of them and Guard came to the square. Ryu doesn't understand why there are so many people here, both guards and residents of the state. Someone is shouting the king's name, and the hero, in turn, asks if it's okay that so many people have gathered here. The king apologizes to him, because of his status, attention could not be avoided, and he also did not want to attract too much attention. He asks if they should come another day, but Ryu says that everything is fine and they'd better finish as soon as possible. Weeks will stretch it out for a few more days. Holding the bird on his hand, the main character says that he will now give him a name and sign a contract with him. The guy explains to the legendary bird that now he will perform a ritual and they will become a family, so he will be glad if Guard agrees with his opinion and thinks the same way. In agreement, Guard beeps, agreeing with his words. Then the main character proceeds to perform the ritual. The bird leans closer to the guy, and Ryu, smiling at the bird, said that his name was Karen now. The latter closed her eyes at his words. In their place, a hurricane appears, created from flames and sweeping away everything in its path. The king does not understand what is happening. Ryu is also at a loss because this has never happened before. But Lear notices something in the hurricane and calls out to the guy, asking him to look where she is pointing. It turned out that an egg appeared inside the hurricane, which continued to hover in the air, while there was nothing next to it. The characters come closer and don't understand if Karen is here. Lear says that Guard is most likely evolving. Ryu thinks that this can only happen to high-ranking monsters. He can't figure out if Karen is one. Lear, in turn, explains to the main character that evolution is the acquisition of a new form and power, and thanks to Ryu's power, she will be able to evolve. The girl is interested in how the Guard will look, and they will need to greet her properly. The egg begins to crack. The main character said that Karen is hatching, after which he put out his hands to protect anyone from falling. A girl with wings falls out. Ryu catches her in time and gently puts her on the ground. He asks if Karen is okay, because she hatched so suddenly. But in response, Guard only calls him Dad. The main character can't believe that he was called that because it was very unexpected for him. But Karen continues and says that even though a lot of time has passed since their last meeting, he hasn't changed at all, and he remains so cool. Although he said that they would be close as a family, He did not think that she would take it so seriously. And why Karen calls him dad? These questions haunted him. And yet, Ryu wonders why she took human form and why she calls him daddy. Karen replies that she has always been alone, and when she was born, there were no parents or friends around, and she was constantly looking for them. However, as soon as people noticed her, they immediately began to attack, and she lived her whole life only running away, escaping from them. Now Lear understands why she flew away when she heard footsteps approaching soldiers. Karen says that she noticed everything correctly, but that day her dad and sister helped her. She means Ryu and Lear, and it was the first time she was treated with such kindness, so she really likes them both, and she decided to take on a form similar to theirs, that is, human. The characters look at each other. Then Ryu comes up to Karina and pats her on the head, saying that he understood everything. The king's voice comes from the hurricane. He asks if everything is okay with Mr. Ryu, and asks him to respond. The hero says that everything is fine with them, and then asks Karen to remove the flame. She fulfills his request without delay. Ryu waves his hand to make their presence noticed. Dwarf notices the guys walking behind each other. The main character approaches the brothers and says that everything went fine. Dwarf doesn't understand how great it is because they made a real firestorm here. After the younger brother calms down, the king asks who is the girl next to Ryu. He introduces her to the brothers and says that this is Karen and that she has decided to take the form of a human. Dwarf is very surprised by what he heard because there is a guard in front of him, and the king, in turn, is not a bit surprised because this is exactly what you would expect from the legendary bird. Ryu asks if they can handle it with Karen's help. He says that, and with such a force, they won't have any problems. Then Ryu said that it was time for them to return to the workshop and get busy, and also asked them to calm down the townspeople. When they were returning back, Karen's feather fell out and remained lying on the ground. However, one young man picked him up and began to examine him, saying under his breath that he was interested in finding out who this Ryu was because he was clearly an unusual person. 1 month later, Dwarf asks the main character to try on his creation. Lear is standing next to him and is also waiting for him to try on. Dwarf says that this is his masterpiece, a leather armor created by him personally. Ryu is absolutely delighted and says that this armor is amazing and he can't believe that he was able to create something so amazing. Dwarf says it's all thanks to rare materials. In addition, he imposed the effect of disabling temperature changes. The main character does not understand what this means and asks him to explain in more detail. He explains to him that, to put it simply, neither fire nor ice magic will work against armor. Resistance to fire magic. They should say thank you to Karen. He was able to get this effect by adding her feathers to the material. And he is also sure that protection from cold and heat will be very useful. Ryu, with sparkling eyes, thanks Dwarf with delight. And only the sword remains. Then the king enters the room and asks for forgiveness for waiting. He informs him that his blade is ready. The main character, in turn, says that the work was worth the wait, and Dwarf is surprised to say that this blade is made of Fenrir's fang. However, Ryu asks if it wasn't supposed to be a dagger, and why the sharpening is only on one side. The king explains to him that this blade is special, and he used techniques from Eastern countries, because they say that with one-sided sharpening, the blade turns out sharper. Karen, who entered with the king at the same time, says that she also helped him create this weapon. Ryu pats her on the head and praises her at the same time. He continues and says that at this stage, it remains only to give a name to this blade. The main character does not understand why the blade needs a name. The king explains that it is important that he can make the engraving, and so that everyone knows that this blade belongs to him and only he could use it. Wonderstez and Ryu did not expect such a request, so there are no options in his head. But suddenly a brilliant idea comes to him. He suggests naming the blade Wolf. The king says that now the blade will bear this name, and Lear, in turn, says that it was predictable, and Ryu does not understand what the problem is. The eldest of the brothers says that it makes no sense to destroy something, and it is better to try it out in a real battle. The main character agrees with him. Sometime later, in the square in the center of the city, a huge crowd gathered again near Ryu and his comrades. Someone in the crowd shouts that apparently some kind of show is planned and they are looking forward to it, and the main character is surprised that the crowd is so huge. The king, regretfully, says that apparently they have heard about him again. The king assured him that he should not worry, because they would not let the citizens get close to him. Ryu says that he understood everything, but he won't get too carried away, so as not to accidentally harm civilians. The king tells him to start. Everyone's attention was focused on the speaker, who announced that the test of the blade created by the king himself was about to take place, and the test itself will begin right now. Finally, the king asks him to release all the magic power together with the blade. After all, he needs to understand how strong this blade is. Ryu says that he understood everything and now he is standing alone in the square. The attention of the citizens is focused on him. The main character thinks, even though he was told not to hold back, he is afraid that his power may hurt citizens. And in that case, it's better for him to aim a punch at the sky. He swung his sword. Everyone is carefully watching the trajectory of the impact and where it is flying. Clouds dispersed from such a blow. Everyone is in complete shock, even Ryu himself. People began to rejoice, and to say that it was so cool and they did not expect to see something like this, and also admired the incredible strength of the main character. Ryu himself can't believe it either. Karen says her dad is the strongest, and Lear comes closer to him and says that she didn't expect anything less from him. The king also approaches the hero and says that this is to be expected from the Fang of Fenrir, because the concentration of magical power is at a completely different level. The king began to talk about what if everything suits him, but they are distracted from the conversation by a voice asking everyone to look up. Everyone threw their heads up together and saw that a dragon was flying in the sky and it was getting closer and closer every second. At the same time, someone is standing on the dragon itself. Ryu stands in complete shock at the oncoming dragon in the clouds. He's flying straight towards them, and there are several people visible on the dragon's back. After the dragon gets closer to the ground, the people standing on its back jump to the ground. They face the main character and his companions. There are 4 of them in total, and they are all dressed in the same uniform. The man standing in front starts the first conversation and says that he and Ryu have not seen each other for a long time. But the guy stands at a loss and does not understand how he knows him. At this time, Lear, on the contrary, perked up after seeing this man. She calls this man Grandpa. Ryu stands in a stupor for a couple of seconds, and only then does he realize that he is an elder. And the man, in turn, smiling, informs him that the main character sees him for the first time in human form, and not in dragon form. Then the main character realizes that the people standing behind are Dad, Mom, and Grandma Lear, and yet he thinks her grandmother looks too young. The woman, as if reading his thoughts, asks him if he has thought about why she looks so young. The guy denies everything and says that he didn't think about anything like that. The king approaches Mr. Fenrir and asks how he is doing. In response, the man replies that he does not complain about his health, and everything is pretty good. And yet, the king wonders why they came here. The elder replies that he just wanted to talk to Ryu. He would like to know something, but he doesn't want to talk about it in front of everyone, so he wants to leave this conversation for later, when they are alone. The main character is interested in what Mr. Fenrir wanted to know from him. He begins to tell him that a very problematic creature has recently woken up, and the name was given to him by the Dragon of Evil. It is a huge 3-headed creature capable of using all kinds of magic. He had fought him before, but even he couldn't defeat him, so the elder had no choice but to seal him. Ryu imagined him in his head and said that he was a real demon and didn't really want to deal with him. Mr. Fenrir explained that he had recently felt the seal begin to weaken. Therefore, I decided to prepare for the battle, and in the battle itself, he will need any allies. That's why he came to ask Ryu for help. But the guy can't even imagine such a thing, and how can he fight with it? Ryo comes closer to the elder and asks if he really thinks he can handle the dragon, but the man just starts laughing out loud and says that he also studied in the Great Forest, and now he is a cut above any human being. He asks the main character to be a little more confident in himself. Ryu declares that since the elder himself said such words to him, then he will do so. Lear, looking out from behind the main character, says that he will also help his grandfather. Ryu turns to the elder and asks where this dragon is now. The man tells him that he is in the Dragon Empire, since the seal is located in a cave near the Imperial Castle. But this time they will all fight together, and he will tell you the details on the way to the kingdom. Ryu doesn't understand how this is possible. Then he hears a strange sound behind him. Turning around, he notices a huge dragon behind him, and this scared him seriously. The dragon told him that it was quite an entertaining picture, because he did not think that Fenrir would ask for help from a human. He tilted his head towards him and asked the main character if he was an elder's disciple. And Ryu can't believe that he's currently talking to the dragon who brought the entire Lear family. Mr. Fenrir decided to introduce him to the others. And as it turns out, this is his son-in-law, the Earth Dragon. The elder son-in-law is pleased to meet the main character. The guy says that he is also very glad to meet them. And yet, Ryu is shocked that the legendary monsters are in the same family. So they also understand human speech. People in the square do not understand what is happening there and cannot believe that the main character can talk to a dragon. Fenrir says his son-in-law will take them to the Dragon Empire. Ryu says it's a little too much for him, and he's still not completely confident in his abilities. And the brothers say that they will go to this empire, and how can they miss such a thing? Sometime later, everyone is flying to the Dragon Empire. The elder sits with them and asks the main character about his new girlfriend. Then he laughs and says that he is not only Lear, but also Karen, and then praises the guy, but still asks him to look more closely so that he has the strength to take care of the two of them. The father, who is around all the time and hears their conversation with Grandpa Lear, tells the guy that he is not a good person, and that first Ryu stole his daughter from him, and now he's cheating on her, and warns that he will soon come to an end. The girl's mother hits her husband on the head and asks him to stop talking nonsense. Then she turns to the main character and asks him not to pay attention to it, and to tell the truth, her husband missed him very much. Ryu notices that they haven't seen each other for a month. He tells her parents that the girl cares very much about Karen, and they always eat together and even take a bath together. Lear explains that this is all because she considers her younger sister. Then Grandpa Lear asks Karen what about her parents and if she thinks they will worry about her. The same one, clinging to her older sister's hand, says that she does not have parents, but she does have Ryu and Lear. Then the elder says that everything is fine. Although she is very young, she is lucky to meet such good people on her way. And he tells Karen so that she knows that if his granddaughter considers her younger sister, then she is like a daughter to them. Although it may be unusual for her at first, he asks her to call them her family. The rest of the family also smiles at her affectionately. Karen's eyes are filled with joy, and a smile spreads on her face, and she tells him that she understood everything, and thanks him. Sometime later, they are riding an earth dragon. He tells them that they will arrive soon. Ree looks around and is delighted with the views of the earth and how beautiful it looks. He has a view of the whole city. It seems so big. The main character himself does not believe in what he sees in front of his eyes. He bends down a little lower to see the area and asks if this is the Dragon Empire. The elder confirms his guesses and tells him that this whole city and palace is a Dragon Empire. The dragon also gets into their dialogue and says that, to be honest, he doesn't really like the empire because it is very small. The main character cannot understand how this is a small country. The dragon explained that they and the Dragonites were good friends, but since the latter are as tall as humans, they had to build a palace according to human standards. Fortunately, he has the magic of transformation, and he can live there in peace. Ryu said it was difficult. Sometime later, here they are already at the gate. The Earth Dragon asks them to pass on. Ryu thanks him. A long-haired guy appears in front of him, leaning over his face. The dragon says he will show them around. The main character did not expect that the Earth Dragon would take on a human form so abruptly. Now they have already reached the gate, which is guarded by guards. They greet the master and bow their heads before him, and he, in turn, thanks the guards for their hard work. They ask if the people with him are his friends. The gentleman explains that yes, this is Fenrir and his family. One of the guards can't believe it and says that with the legendary monsters on their side, victory is assured for them. The second guard wonders who this person is, pointing at Ryu. He explains to him that this is his student, but the guards do not understand how their master's disciple can be human and ask if everything will be fine, because people are very weak. Ryu is not happy with these words, but he cannot object to them, because if compared with them, it is true. Father Lear becomes enraged and tells the guards that they really want to say that the student who studied with their elder is a weakling. The guardian is horrified by the man's menacing aura and says that's not what they meant. Ryu wonders why her father is so angry and stands up for him. The girl suggests that, most likely, he thought that they were perceived as weaklings, full of anger and determination. Father Lear finally declares that he has understood everything and says that they will show how strong their student is. As soon as they enter the gate, Father Lear immediately asked them to call his boss here, and he said that Ryu would kill him in 2 seconds. The guy himself does not understand how he found himself in such a situation and why decisions are made for him. The boss looks very intimidating. He has small horns on his forehead, and now they are standing far away from everyone to start their duel. Father Lear, shouting from the crowd, says that the guy should not even dare to lose, and Karen only wishes good luck to the main character. All this puts a lot of pressure on Ryu's psyche, and he doesn't really like what is happening, because he didn't want to get involved in any fights. And the Earth Dragon calls them to him and asks them to discuss the rules of the duel with them. He asks if they will agree. If one of the sides cannot continue to fight, then he automatically loses. The boss says that he has no objections, as does the main character standing in front of him. The boss tells him that even though Ryu is an ordinary person, he won't hold back and asks him to get ready. The Earth Dragon lowers his hand, saying that the duel can begin. After the signal to start the fight, the boss did not wait a second and immediately went on the attack. Due to his fast speed, he was near Ryu's face and had already pointed his sword at him. But the main character stopped him in time, even though it was hard for him. He beat off his attack, albeit with difficulty. The boss went into retreat and began to wait for a more appropriate moment to attack, and now it has come. Immediately, not for a second, he again finds himself near the face of the main character, armed with his sword. He sees how hard it is for the boy and asks what happened, if he really intends to go against the Black Dragon with such forces. Ryu can't handle such a huge number of attacks. It's beyond his strength. After all, his opponent is not only strong, but also fast, and he cannot counterattack in any way. But he can't give up now either, because his reputation is at stake. He understands that he needs to use the sword technique. If he attacks using magic power, then he will have a chance. But he needs to restrain his strength to overcome him at the right moment. And when their swords touched again, he realizes that it's time to use the sword technique. He touches the sharp end from the blade to the sword of his opponent. He, not expecting anything from the magical force, flies into the wall so hard that a large dent remains there. Everyone present and watching what is happening is shocked by what happened, as is Ryu himself. The main character carefully holds the blade in his hands, because he has not yet got used to the power of the wolf. The Earth Dragon raises his hand up, thereby making it clear that the duel is over, and declares that Ryu becomes the winner. The guards were also watching what was happening, and they run up to their commander, who is lying on the floor. Father Lear approaches the guy and begins to praise him, saying that he is doing well. Karen also does not stay away, rejoicing for her dad's victory. Ryu himself is more concerned about the condition of his opponent. He turns to the Earth Dragon and asks if everything is okay with him. The man answers him that nothing terrible happened to him, because they both agreed to a duel, and nothing will happen to him after all. Ryu breathes a sigh of relief after his words. The elder also comes up to the guy and puts his hand on his shoulder, while saying that the main character has become stronger. The Earth Dragon says that he will open the gates to the Dragon Empire for them. He puts his hands on the doors to push them open. Everyone froze in anticipation. He opens these gates with a certain heaviness, and yet he manages to do it, and a beautiful view opens up in front of them, where the beautiful nature of the Empire is visible. The Earth Dragon leads them. Passing by one house, a man stands near the window, whose face is not visible behind the shadow, and he says that he did not think that the soldiers of the Dragon Army could be defeated so easily, because it seems so impossible. And he's looking forward to meeting the people who've just arrived, because they are such interesting personalities. The travelers are walking along the main street, where a lot of people have gathered. Ryu goes and carefully adjusts all the streets, saying that it is very beautiful here. The Earth Dragon answers him that this is the land of dragons, which is why human lands are very different from this place. Karen stops, carefully looking at the counter of the store. Ryu and Lear notice this and approach her. The girl asks what happened. Karen didn't expect anyone to follow her and say that everything was fine. Lear looks at the store counter and sees that bows are laid out there. She concludes that she wanted to buy one of them, so she asks if she liked the bows. The Earth Dragon, having heard their dialogue, says that there is still a little time before the battle, so they can walk around the city on their own. Then the main character invites them to go shopping and buy everything they want. The girls immediately agree, and they are only delighted with such an offer. some time later. The dragon says they need to meet the emperor first. All the passers-by they meet on their way are working hard and everyone is busy with their own business. Ryu notices that there are many different races here, not just dragons. The earth dragon walking in front says that he noticed correctly and the dragons treat all races favorably. After all, dragonites are half dragons and half humans, and after evolution, some dragonites had a lizard head. The main character is interested in listening to him, and he asks what kind of dragon emperor he is. The dragon answers him that the emperor is the strongest dragon in the empire, and he is much stronger than him. The guy can't believe in the power and strength of the emperor. The earth dragon interrupts his thoughts and tells him that he will understand everything immediately after seeing him, and asks him to come into the hall, because they have already come and their conversation is over. The door opens. The main character sees the emperor and empress sitting on the throne in front of him. They both look friendly, and Ryu thinks to himself that their aura is very different from the rest, and it is immediately clear that they are the imperial family. The earth dragon bows and greets the emperor. They both rise from their thrones and come closer to the travelers who have just entered. The emperor also greets the earth dragon, and the empress, in turn, says that she did not expect that he would find so many allies, especially a man capable of defeating the captain of the guards. Saying these words, she acquires an appreciative look at the guy, but then her expression changes to a slight smile, and she says that she has never seen such strong people. And he's counting on the main character. The earth dragon turns to the guy and asks him to say something in response, but the emperor interrupts their dialogue, saying that, first of all, he would like to discuss tactics with the Fenrir family. The empress adds that they have prepared rooms for them. The guys look at the rulers of the dragon country in surprise, and the elder asks, except with them, but what about the others? Upon hearing this question, the emperor's expression changes, and he does not give his answer so soon, but still says that only they will participate in the battle. Most of all, this news shocked Ryu. He can't believe that only they will participate in the fight. The emperor, with a regretful look on his face, says that this is exactly the case, because they used to maintain friendly relations with other races. However, now with the appearance of the hero, they have refused to support them. The elder says that he understands everything, and the main character stands in complete shock, trying to digest the information he has just heard. He wonders if they will be all right, because there are very few of them. Here, from the conversation, he remembers the hero, and he remembers that Tia has become a hero and thinks maybe he should ask her for help. The earth dragon says it won't work, because the current hero perceives any monsters as enemies, and she attacks even half-humans. The main character cannot believe that Tia attacks everyone indiscriminately, because he knows her personally and she is not that kind of person at all. The head of the Fenrir family understands that in such a situation they have very little chance of winning. The emperor apologizes, but now Ryu thought about it, and remembered that before their journey, Taiga had mentioned Tia's strange behavior. The hero asks Taiga if it's true that Tia has been acting strangely lately, to which he replied that it's exactly like that, and when they accept a request to fight monsters, her look changes beyond recognition. Even he gets scared sometimes. Ryu can't believe his words because he remembers that Tia used to be a real crybaby. Taiga remembers it, too. Still, he asks the main character if he knows what could have happened to her. But in response, the main character only tells him that he has no idea what could have happened. Taiga argues that maybe the heroic spirit prevails in her, which is why she behaves like this, and it will be good if it turns out that way. But Ryu thinks maybe the reason is different, and why the girl hates monsters so much. Meanwhile, Tia and Taiga, who are on a mission and simultaneously engaged in the search for the main character, do not understand what kind of absurd request this is. The guy is outraged. In order to create a weapon from the fangs of Fenrir, you need the Flame of Guard, and how to get it all. But these were the words of the king, who told them that if they got all the materials, he would create legendary weapons for them. Taiga says that he has heard that the king of this country is a skilled blacksmith. The man next to him says that this was to be expected, and appropriate materials are needed for a powerful weapon. Then Tia asks to forget about this weapon. But the girl standing behind her asks, then what is the point of their coming here? Priestess Maria says that Tia is a hero and is constantly in danger. The Knight Gran, who's on the hero's team, joined her, as did the priestess. He agrees with Maria and says that she needs to have a good weapon, because she is a hero. Then Taiga first suggests that they go to the guild, and maybe there they will be able to find information about the necessary materials. All team members agree with him. Sometime later, they came to the guild, but the people there are looking at them strangely. The knight notices this and cannot understand what is happening. The people around them look at them so suspiciously as soon as they mention Fenrir and guard, and when they ask about them, the locals seem to have taken water in their mouths. They are silent and do not say anything. Tia suggests that maybe something bad happened in this country. An unknown man in a black robe approaches the team. His face is not visible, and he asks them if they really want to know more about the Fenrir and the legendary bird of Garda. The girl asks who he is, this young man posing as an information dealer, and he asks why the hero is interested in Fenrir and Gard. The girl explains to him that the king told them that if they want to get weapons, they need to get the fangs of Fenrir and the flame of Gard. Gran approaches the information dealer and says that he clearly knows something and asks to tell them about it, and they are ready to pay any amount for this information. But the merchant says he doesn't need anything and asks to hear a story. About a month ago, a man appeared in this country with the company of Fenrir and Gard. He helped suppress the rebellion of the king's younger brother, and, in short, he is now the hero of their country. Tia doesn't understand what this is supposed to mean, because she is a hero. The merchant continues his story and says that there are rumors that the hero hates monsters. However, that guy is friends with Fenrir and Gard, which contradicts all the rumors, and he's afraid that their hero will just cut down Fenrir and Gard. If the merchant gives them more information, then their hero will kill the hero's allies from their country, and he can return to take revenge on them. Maria asks about that, which is why no one wants to tell them about it. The merchant replied vaguely. Taiga asks Tia what is the matter and why she is silent. The girl stands with her back to them and says nothing. Then she turned around and said that she would definitely deal with this hero. The girl goes to the exit and thanks the information dealer. Taiga tries to stop the girl, but the girl is determined to destroy all the monsters. She leaves the guild and promises herself that as soon as this is over, Tia will definitely find Ryu. Meanwhile, Ryu. He's sitting at the table with Lear and Karen. Tired, he lies down on the table and is glad that they are finally finished and he can take a break. They didn't decide anything at the meeting. The Dragon Emperor and the Elder continued to discuss tactics for the battle, so there was nothing for him to do there. Lear suggests they take a walk in the palace. Karen instantly agrees with the girl's proposal. Ryu also has nothing against it, and yet the main character thinks that one should not mindlessly walk around the palace and should first warn someone. He opens the door to get out and is greeted by a maid. Ryu is surprised because he has already seen this maid standing next to the Empress. She asks where he is going. The main character is shocked by this question and says that they just wanted to explore the palace a bit. The maid looks at them with some suspicion, but she immediately changes her face and asks them to follow her. Karen is very pleased with this outcome of events. The characters move forward, and the guy has some strange feeling. He does not understand. Maybe she was standing outside the door and eavesdropping all the time while they were in the room. Sometime later, the maid shows them where the dining room, library, and training area are located, where the knights are currently training. And then she leads them to the Imperial Garden. All three are delighted with the beauty they see, and I can't take my eyes off her. Karen says the garden looks great. Lear completely agrees with her. The main character also says that it is really very beautiful here. The maid said she was glad that the guests liked it, because the princess really likes it here too. Ree doesn't understand which princess. He asks the maid if there is a princess here. She tells him that, yes, and she is very important for their country. The main character says that everything is clear to him, but he is only concerned about one question. Pointing to a column with a lock of hair sticking out of it, he asks who is hiding there. A little girl comes out of her hiding place and says that he noticed her after all. All three are in shock, because there is a child in front of them. The girl walked up to the main character and just stared at him. He doesn't understand why she just stands there and asks if she needs something from him. This question puts the girl in a stupor, and she does not know what to say to him. The girl tries to come up with an excuse, but nothing works. Then she turns her attention to his sword, and a brilliant idea comes to her. The girl asks to give it to her. Ryu instantly replies that, no, he can't give it to her. Everyone present at this moment stands in silence for a while. The little girl is surprised by his refusal. She cannot understand the reason for this refusal. The main character explains to her that such things are not toys for children. 299 These words infuriate her, and she starts tapping her foot on the floor while saying that she is not a child. Ryu stands at a loss from what is happening. He casts a blank look at the maid. She understands what he means, apologizes to him, and says she will call her parents right away. The guy says it's okay and he'll wait. Then he squats down in front of her and tells her that her parents are coming. Karen asks if the girl is lost. She gets even more angry from these words, starting to shake, and tells them not to mock her. Then she declares that she will take his sword by force and throws her whole body at the main character. He deftly dodges, preventing the girl from achieving what she wants. He does not understand what she is doing, but the girl only begins to scream at this, while telling him to give her his sword. The girl runs back to the guy to take away his sword, but Ryu again does not let her do it, running away from her. And yet, the main character notices that she moves too fast for a child. However, the girl is too predictable. She can't take no for an answer, and holds out her hands to the guy, telling him to give her what she wants. But the guy repeats once again that he will not do this, and asks Lear and Karen to help him at last. But the girls are not going to interfere in their showdown with her. Lear says that he is doing a great job himself, and Karen only asks the main character to play with her later in the same way. Ryu understands that there is no need to expect any help from them. Out of anger, the girl begins to shake and scream all over. How dare he disobey her, and this pisses her off. Unable to contain her emotions, the girl strongly waves her hands, which are clenched into fists. Worried the sharp claws in front of him. He doesn't understand how it happened. The girl tells him that once he angered her and asks if he wants to say something last. She points her hand at the guy's face, telling him to get it. The guy sees the nails approaching his face, but he abruptly runs away from that place, and the princess, in turn, crashes with all her might into a column, hitting her head. The guy moves away from her to a safe distance, and the girl continues to shake with anger. Nevertheless, he begins to worry about the girl and asks if she is all right, because she is sitting on the ground and shaking. But when the princess turns to face him, the main character sees her crying and says that she is in pain. The guy does not know what to do, since he is actually to blame for her blow. The main character sits down next to her, and the girl, sitting on the floor and continuing to shed tears, asks why she can't beat him. After all, she is much stronger than him. The guy, in turn, asks her to calm down, and he asks if they need to call a doctor. A voice is heard from behind, apologizing for the wait. It was the maid. She brought the Empress. They're heading straight for them. The guy doesn't believe the Empress came here. He quickly gets up from the floor and walks over to her, and he asks what she has forgotten here, because the maid told him that she would call her parents. However, the Empress bows her head in front of him, thereby asking for forgiveness for her daughter's bad behavior. Here the guy's whole world is collapsing, and he doesn't understand how it can be her daughter. The Empress raises her head and regretfully says that he understood everything correctly, and this is her daughter, and the maid adds that her granddaughter is also there. The main character cannot accept this fact either. How can she be her granddaughter? And he asks the maid why she didn't immediately stop the princess when she started behaving badly. But the woman, averting her eyes to the side, only says that she does not know how to communicate with children. Here Ryu's brain finally broke down. He tries to understand that since the girl's mother is the Empress, then who is her father? Then he finally realizes that the girl sitting on the floor in front of him is the heir to the throne. Ryu still can't accept the fact that this girl who tried to steal his sword is a princess of the Dragon Empire. An elder comes around the corner to him and says that he is always in the center of events. Ryu is surprised by his arrival, and the elder, in turn, greets the maid, calling her Tiamat. The woman replies to him that she is also pleased to see him. The head of the Fenrir clan does not understand what is happening here. After the elder was briefed on the case, it became clear to him that the girl wanted to steal Ryu's sword. But she says in her defense that it wasn't her fault, and he continued to dodge her attacks. And if he had stood still, she would have definitely defeated him. Her grandmother can no longer tolerate such a disgrace, and asks the girl to calm down. And then he says that she is lost and asks her to accept this fact already, because it looks like she will have to tighten up their daily training. The maid makes a 90-degree bow, thereby repeatedly asking for forgiveness from the main character. Ryu waves it off and says that he shouldn't have done it and that he's fine. But Tiamat has one request for him. She asks if he could help her with the princess's training. Saying these words, she puts her hand on the princess's head. This request puts the guy in shock. He can't believe what he's heard. He asks if they can't find someone stronger. But the maid says that in this case, the princess will be afraid of a rival. And when she is with him, she feels calmer. The girl's parents also wanted to ask him about it. After all, she's going to inherit the throne, so they would like her to be ready for this. And they are asking him very much for help. Ryo says he agrees, but is afraid of being a bad teacher. An elder comes up to him from behind and puts his hand on his shoulder, telling him to agree, because even the dragons bowed their heads in front of him. And he also needs training himself. Ryu says after a while that he agrees to help with the girl's training. Therefore, he asks them all to raise their heads. The princess's grandmother thanks him, but he didn't finish and said he had a request in return. He put his hand on his chest and said that in return he wanted Tiamat to teach him, too. The woman does not understand what to teach him, but the main character explains that this is all due to the fact that he would like to better prepare for battle, and her lessons will clearly benefit him. The maid smiles sweetly and says that she has nothing against these trainings. There's no limit to the guy's happiness, and he thanks her. Then he turns to Karen and wants to tell them that they can rest for now. But the girl interrupts him, from which he does not have time to finish, and informs him that she is not satisfied with this, and she will train too. Ryu doesn't understand why she would do that because it could be dangerous, but Karen replies that she wants to help her dad, and she also doesn't want to stay away forever. The main character wants to calm her down, but then the elder gets into the conversation and says that he will personally take over the training of the guard. Karen can't believe it and asks him if it's true, and Ryu asks if everything is going to be okay. The elder only says that if the girl asks like that, then how can he refuse her? After all, she wants to become stronger, and if so, then he will be happy to help her in this. Then the head of the Fenrir family approaches Tiamat and begins to offer her something, whispering in her ear. Her eyes narrow sharply. She smiles at his suggestion and says that in that case, we should start tomorrow. And the elder still asks not to kill him. Ryu, standing next to him, does not understand what is happening. But one thing he knows for sure, it somehow applies to him. The next morning, the maid sends the main character flying with one blow. He lands on his knees. The woman tells him to get up because they haven't finished yet. Ryu turns around at the maid's voice and realizes that she is just a devil. But the guy also remembers that the elder is now studying with Karen and has already imagined in his head how the girl is lying on the floor. Tiamat continues to scold him, saying that he may be able to do something, but there is a lot of excess in his movements. She asks him to try to save his strength, because he is exhausted very quickly. At the same time, she taught him a lesson with her hand. The maid continues and says that with such powers he cannot defeat the dragon. The guy flies back from the blow, but still he manages to stay on his feet, even though it was very difficult. But he remembers that Karen and Lear are giving their best, and he can't give in to them. He is determined not to deviate from his goal, and he will definitely become stronger. But it didn't take long before the maid sent him flying again. Some time later, the woman says that's enough for today. And the princess and the main character are happy that it's finally over. They are both shaking, no longer able to stand on their feet. But Tiamat is not finished and tells them to run another 100 laps around the site. Both are surprised that it wasn't the end of the workout. After a while, Ryu and the princess enter the dining room. They have no strength left for anything. They are very exhausted after training. And the maid standing behind Lear and Karen says that from today she will monitor their nutrition, adding that she does not accept objections and that she will be back soon. Karen and Lear notice that the guys don't look good, and they ask if they are all right. But neither the main character nor the princess know what to say to them. They look at each other, and Ryu says that even he finds it difficult to stand it, and the girl admits that the man surprised her with his endurance. A few days later, Princess. He attacks the guy, who continues to dodge. And so the girl makes one wrong move, and Ryu grabs her hand, thereby immobilizing her, and then completely presses the girl to the floor so that she does not escape. The main character says that he is tired, and the princess at the same time declares that she can continue. Lear and Karen are watching their training from the sidelines, and the girl's grandmother tells her that she moves too simply. and before attacking, she should think over her movements. Now it's Ryu's turn, and now he listens to criticism from the maid. She tells the guy that he is moving well, but his reaction is too slow. It might still work with the princess. However, if the enemy moves much faster, he will be in trouble, and asks him to always closely monitor the movements of the enemy. Ryo just awkwardly scratches his head, and reluctantly says that since she tells him to do exactly that, he has no choice. But Tiamat doesn't let the guy finish, and assures him that everything is quite simple. He needs to feel the mana of the opponent. Where is she going? When to attack, and when to retreat. And with this skill, he will have a much better understanding of the situation in battle. After reading the opponent's mana, Ryu will understand where he will attack. And yet the guy didn't understand anything even after the explanation from the maid. She sighs heavily and says that it's quite difficult to understand in words. Then she asks if when he faced a strong opponent, he didn't feel any pressure. The guy remembers their first meeting with the king, and the fact that he felt this ominous aura. The woman understands that the guy remembered this feeling and says that it's good, because he already has an idea. And once this lesson has been learned, she offers to fix the material he has learned, and at the same time unbuttons her shirt. The guy does not understand what she is trying to do with this and tries to cover her eyes with her hands so as not to see anything superfluous. The main character asks her to stop doing this. Then he realizes that something or someone has blocked the sun for him. He removes his hands from his face and sees a huge dragon in front of him, which is the cause of the blocked sun. The princess's grandmother took the form of a dragon and tells him that from now on, he will only fight her in this form. Ryu can't believe what she just said. The woman asks to defeat her and tells the guy that he can use any weapon. Here, Ryu finds out that Tiamat will also participate in the battle. The girl comes closer to him and says that he can attack her after the guy dodges her grandmother's attacks. The guy comes in complete shock and asks if it's not too cruel. But Tiamat answers him that the main character can only blame himself for choosing her as his teacher. And the elder tells him that the real training will begin now and asks him to get ready. The maid swings her tail and says they're starting. A blow from the dragon's tail throws it some distance away. He had not expected such a rapid advance. A woman in the guise of a dragon asks what is the matter and reminds him that the attacks of the dark dragon will be many times stronger. But the main character, snatching his sword from his bosom, says that he knows himself. But a girl abruptly runs out from behind and asks not to forget about her. The guy did not expect this, so he moves aside, and the princess, in turn, tries to attack her grandmother. She circles around the dragon trying to confuse her, while Ryu stands aside and does not understand what he should do. And he has no choice but to dodge their blows. After all, if he tries to approach, he will immediately be attacked by a girl and her grandmother. Then Tiamat noticed that Ryu was standing in thought and did not move. She began to shout at him, saying that it was impossible to reflect during the fight, and asks if he has forgotten what they were talking about, and reminds him that he should feel mana. These words bring the guy to his senses, and the maid, in turn, made sure that the field was completely covered with dust, and tells him that he will not defeat his opponent by relying only on his eyesight. Sometime later, the guy has almost no strength left. He's breathing heavily and trying to keep his balance so as not to fall. He tries to focus his attention on the opponent. The dragon looks at him and wonders if this is seriously his limit, and admits that for a human, the guy showed a pretty good result. She recalls her recent conversation with Fenrir. The head of the Fenrir family told the maid that perhaps Ryu was the right person, the present time. So far, the woman has not noticed any outstanding abilities of the main character, and he thinks maybe the elder made a mistake in his proposal. But after a moment, the boy's aura begins to change. Like his facial expression, the elder and the dragon now feel the power of the protagonist, and notice that something has definitely changed in him. The head of the Fenrir family just grins contentedly, and the maid thinks it's worth trying something. She decides to provoke Ryu into a conflict by asking if that's all he's capable of. The happy princess flies into the attack, realizing that this is a great chance for her. But Tiamat continues and asks the main character if she should just kill him. The girl is taken by surprise by these words, and she stops because she does not understand what her grandmother means. But the dragon continues and says that in his current state, the guy will still die at the hands of the dark dragon, and she can kill him without causing unnecessary suffering. Tiamat bent her head over the guy, thereby looming over him. The maid in the guise of a dragon says that this is the end for the main character. He's standing at the bottom next to her. The princess, standing away from the guy, asks her grandmother to stop. And Ryu, in turn, does not understand why everything turned out that way, because he wanted to catch up with his friends so much. But the main character can't believe all that he did was in vain. A hand touches his shoulder, and his behavior changes instantly, and he says that he will not accept this and will fight to the end, because he is not going to give up so easily. The maid feels all his determination and kicks him, creating even more dust so that visibility is zero. From such a blow, the wind passes, which almost blows the princess off her feet. The guy notices that the dragon's leg was literally a couple of centimeters from his body, and now it becomes clear to him, although only for a moment, he saw the trajectory of the blow with the help of mana, since nothing can be seen beyond his hand due to the dust. And only because of this, he was able to dodge the blow and stay alive. He thinks maybe now he could feel the opponent's mana. The maid returned to her human form and congratulates the main character that he was finally able to feel the mana of the opponent. She is interested in how he likes a woman's acting skills, and yet she hopes that the main character did not believe that she was really going to kill him. The guy sighs with relief and says, "That's how it was." And yet, Tiamat adds and says that he cannot say that everything was a game. These words throw the guy into shock. And the maid says that despite this, the main character successfully coped with her ordeal. And she asks him to accept congratulations from her. The guy blushes at her words and thanks the princess's grandmother. And the princess herself, standing a little apart from them, is waving her arms and acting up, telling her why she didn't know anything about it, and they would continue to train until she passed the test as well. Tiamat asks his granddaughter not to be so selfish, and also asks her to stop acting up. But the main character bursts into their dialogue, asking if the princess didn't pass the test too. Both the grandmother and the granddaughter turned to him and looked at him in bewilderment, as they did not understand his words, and were waiting for an explanation from him. The guy points to the button of his vest, which was about to fall off from it. He says that the girl still hurt him, and asks if it's true that her task was to knock him up. The maid, putting her hand to her head, says that formally, it was exactly like that. And yet, she tells her that the princess has passed. The girl can't believe it, and her eyes begin to shine with happiness. She is happy with her little victory, and the main character, seeing her success, pats her on the head and says that the princess is doing well. The girl is pleased with the praise from Ryu, and she starts laughing, saying that naturally she passed, because he could too. Lear and Karen, standing a little apart from them but watching the fight all the time, said it was amazing, and in honor of this event, they offered to eat together. The main character, seeing the girls, shouts out their names with joy. Tiamat, being a little further away from them, quietly and peacefully watches them, enjoying their conversation. Sometime later, it's already late at night, and the elder and Tiamat drink together. The head of the Fenrir family did not think that they would ever drink together again. Their faces are barely visible. The room is dimmed, creating an atmosphere of comfort. He remembers the old days when they couldn't talk quietly for a minute. The maid only laughs at this and says that at least they always had something to do. The elder asks the woman how her training sessions with the main character are going. Tiamat just nods and says that it's absolutely fine. And besides, Ryu is making progress. The elder starts laughing out of pride towards the guy, and then says that he did not think that Tiamat would ever be able to afford a man. But the woman, in turn, declares that she never imagined that she would train a person. The head of the Fenrir family only says that one day the time will come when the main character will defeat them too. The woman thinks a little and says that everything is possible, but nevertheless, she is glad that the little lady follows Ryu's example, and she continues to wonder if she will be able to marry the princess to Mr. Ryu. The elder choked on the statement, "It was amazing news." He starts coughing, and then he asks Tiamat if she is drunk or if she is unwell. And he reminds her that marrying the dragon princess to a human is not a completely reasonable decision, and this cannot be. The woman just grins at this and says that it's not exactly easy, but it's not impossible either. After all, if the main character becomes stronger than them, then others will recognize him. Besides, as he said, Mr. Ryu is the right person. The elder sighs heavily and agrees with the woman and says that a person he knows had a hand in this. Tiamat continues and says that today she saw his power for herself. The head of the Fenrir family begins to frown, and then he says that an ordinary person cannot have such power. Still, he wonders why Ryu is that person. After all, many have already tried to get his power through a contract. However, each of these people died a terrible death. Tiamat also becomes serious and says that the choice is still his and no one can stop him. And if he finds out about the main character, then they will have a lot of problems. After all, Ryu has gained a power that no one has yet been able to master. The elder asks if anyone else is aware of this. The woman says she doesn't think so. After all, he has been missing for many years. And then she asks the elder how they finally met the guy. The head of the Fenrir family says that he will definitely tell her everything as soon as the time comes. Because Ryu has a hidden power that no one knows about. The main character continued training with Miss Tiamat. They staged a duel. The guy runs to attack the woman, simultaneously telling her to get. His blow knocks the maid back, but she still manages to stay on her feet. And after the end of their fight, Tiamat says that Mr. Ryu has become much stronger. He asks the woman if this is true. She confirms his words and says that his skills have really improved, and she's amazed at the speed of his development. The guy cries out in surprise with joy and asks again if this is true. He is very proud of himself and understands that he is already reaping the fruits of his hard training. And it is possible that he will already be able to inflict damage on the Dark Dragon. Tiamat says that since his results have improved, there will be no training tomorrow. Happiness is visible on the woman's face, but indignation is on the guy's face. He does not understand the reason for the cancellation of the workout and asks his teacher about it. She explains to him that he trains every day and his body is very tired, so rest will be more useful now than ever. And besides, rest is also part of the workout. She reports this to the elder and asks why he doesn't spend time with Lear and Karen. Meanwhile, the girls staged a duel, and the head of the Fenrir family is watching this, standing a little apart. The main character likes this idea, and he agrees with it. Remembering that they never managed to walk around the city, and he thinks that maybe they should see the sights. The next morning, Mr. Ryu's bedroom. He is sleeping peacefully in his bed, but he feels someone's presence in the room. And in his sleep, he hears someone's voice calling his name and asking him to wake up. The main character does not understand who it might be, and yet reluctantly he opens his eyes to examine this person. When Ryu fully opened his eyes, he noticed Lear in front of him, asking him to wake up. He is surprised that the girl personally came to wake him up, and Lear does not answer his questions, but only hurries him, saying that Karen is already waiting for them and asks him to get dressed faster. He had promised the girls he would go for a walk with them today. Sometime later, the main shopping area. All people are busy with their business and everyone is in a hurry to do their job. The heroes are there too. He asks the girls where they should go. Karen thinks about it and Lear replies that he does not know the city, so she has no suggestions where they could go. The main character remembers that at that moment Karen was looking at the ribbons, so he suggests that they go to this store. The girl can't believe it and asks in surprise if it's true. And Lear says it's a great idea. Rhea turns her head back and asks the other person if she agrees with his proposal. After that, he adds the address, Princess. The little lady stands pleased that she went with the guys. She stands in a proud pose with her hands on her hips and a smirk on her face. The girl replies that of course she agrees, and besides, they don't know the city, so she will show them everything and after all, they will still be grateful to her. And Ryu, in turn, did not think that he would go for a walk with the princess. He remembered talking to Tiamat earlier during training. The guy stands in shock and asks the woman again if she really asks to take the princess with her. The girl's grandmother, with a serious expression on her face, replies that he understood everything correctly and explains that she was asked to participate in the meeting, and there is no one to look after the princess. So she asks him for such a request. Then the main character asks about the other servants, but the woman answers him that, unfortunately, they are not able to contain the violent temper of the princess. She cheers him on, saying he'll be fine. It's a nervous time. Even though Miss Tiamat said so, he would still fly if something happened to the young lady. And for inspiration, the princess asks them all to follow her. They come to the jewelry store. At this time, the seller bows to them. They're the only ones in the shop. The man greets them, and then asks if they should be prompted or guided in choosing an assortment. The young lady tells him that her friends want to buy jewelry, so she brought them here. Karen's eyes sparkle with happiness when she looks at all these jewels and simultaneously admires them. Lear does the same, and is surprised by the amount of jewelry in the window. Lear and Karen happily looked at the jewelry. Suddenly, Ryu noticed the gaze of the princess, who was looking at the girls. Ryu suddenly asked the girl if she wanted to see the bright decorations together. The princess started in surprise. She turned away and said with a haughty tone that she was a princess and she had everything. Ryu smiled and added that girls like jewelry. The princess silently looked at the young man and then asked if she could ask him something. Ryu was surprised, but said nothing. Then the princess asks the young man with a serious face why he wants to become stronger. Ryu is surprised but can't say a word. He says the girl asked him about it so suddenly. The princess ordered him to simply answer her question. Ryu scratches his cheek and says that he wanted to be on par with his friends. He smiles awkwardly. He continues and says that they both got rare martial professions. However, he was not so lucky and he stayed behind them, which is why he wanted to become stronger. The princess asks if this means that the young man wanted strength because he has an unsuccessful profession, the same as hers. Suddenly, Ryu is talking about a mentor. The princess is surprised and asks what this means and if it's really just because of the mentor. She screams and asks if she really lost to an ordinary mentor. Ryu shouted that he had been training a lot. He says that he was able to gain power only because of Lear. If he had not met Lear, he would have remained a simple shepherd and would not have seen other countries. The princess is surprised and asks about other countries. She starts asking Ryu about where he has been and what kind of people are there, and if they would have fun. Ryu said that he hadn't traveled much, and he had only been to one country. Ryu said that the girl is a princess. He asks if she doesn't have to travel a lot. The princess gave a negative answer. She said she had never left the empire. Ryu was very surprised. The princess squeezed her dress and said that since she was a princess, she could not just leave the country, and she was here as if in a cage. Ryu looked at the girl and said that he understood her. The princess got angry and asked the young man what he meant. She screamed and asked how to understand this and if the young man was also their royal family. She asks if the young man really thinks she is so easy to understand. Ryu smiled sweetly and said that he was exactly the same as the princess. He never left his village and learned everything from his friends. He was envious of how they could travel freely, and when they brought souvenirs, it only increased his jealousy. He asks the stunned princess if she really feels the same way. The princess was surprised. Suddenly, she screamed and said that everything was exactly like that. But parents and grandmother always take care of the princess. But even custody has a limit, and he really wants to see the world. She wants to see every country in the world. The girl says she wants to find a place that no one has seen yet and get praise from others. Meet different people and try different food. She also talks about one more thing and confusedly adds that it is possible to find friends. Of course, she can handle everything on her own, but it's not that simple. Ryu thought it was because she was trying to make friends with them. Suddenly, Ryu calls Karen and asks him to look at his new ribbons, which they have just chosen. Ryu asked the girl if she really had already chosen the ribbons. He said they were very becoming to the girl. Karen asked the young man if they really looked very cute. Then she looked at the princess and asked her what she and Ryu were talking about. The girl flinched at the unexpected question. The princess turned away and said sheepishly that there was nothing special. Ryu smiled and said that the princess really wants to make friends with them. The girl is very confused and panicked. The girl screamed and asked the young man who allowed him to say such a thing. Karen was very surprised to hear this. Karen asked with a questioning face if they weren't already friends. The princess was very much surprised. The princess asked Karen what she was even saying. Karen thought about it and said that, how should I say, they eat together and train together too. She was delighted and asked if that didn't mean they were already friends. The princess screamed and said that this was certainly not the case. Karen says that she and her dad and sister are family, but she would be happy to make friends. She asks if the princess wants to be friends with her. The girl was very upset. The princess was surprised by this question so much that she recoiled from the girl. She tried to explain herself to her. At that moment, Ryu and Lear exchanged glances and smiled. Ryu said that she would also be happy if they became friends. Lear didn't really sigh and said she didn't have many friends either. Karen had a serene face. The princess was a little tense. Then the princess screamed and said that she agreed to become friends with them and they could even address her by her first name. Karin was delighted and said that then they should choose a ribbon for Oke too. The princess was surprised and asked about the ribbon and said that she already had a ribbon. Karin smiled and took the girl's hand and told Oka to come with them. It will be a proof of their friendship. She asked the stunned girl if that was really what friends did. Oka was very surprised and then pressed her lips together. Oka responded positively. At this time, Ryu and Lear were standing to the side. Lear smiled and said they seemed to be having a lot of fun. Ryu said it was good that they became friends quickly. Suddenly, Ryu asked Lear why she hadn't bought anything. They also have money from the sale of materials, so she cannot be shy. He shows her a necklace with a beautiful pendant and asks if she can use it. Lear replied that these chains look like a collar. She doesn't like them. Then the girl sadly says that, besides, she will interfere with her in battle. The young man offers to treat the girl. Suddenly, Ryu looks away and is surprised. He puts a scarf on the lyre and asks how about this scarf. The girl is surprised and asks if it is really a scarf. Ryu says that if it is not convenient to wear it around her neck, then a girl can tie it on her arm. Besides, it suits Lear's black hair. Ryu says that if a girl doesn't like it, then they can watch something else. Lear says that everything is fine. Suddenly, Lear smiles and thanks Ryu from the bottom of his heart. After a while, a group of guys leave the store, and the seller thanks them for the purchase. The girls ask Ryu where they will go next, and Lear asks if there are any other popular shops. The princess asks them to follow her. Then she smiles and says she's sure they'll like it. Suddenly, the princess stops. Ryu asks the girl what happened. The princess is surprised. She looks up at the sky and sees a huge dragon there. The dragon grins and looks straight down at Ryu's group. Suddenly, a maid appears in front of Ryu. Ryu recognizes her as Mrs. Tiamat and asks her what happened. Tiamat looks at them with a serious face and says they have problems. Lady Tiamat says that the seal in the cave of the Dragon of Darkness has weakened too much. It looks like he's going to break out sooner than they expected. Ryu got scared and asked what it meant. Tiamat said that according to preliminary forecasts, he would break out today, so they should prepare well. Ryu was very surprised and panicked, and then asked if it would really be today. Then there was silence, and someone asked if it was really starting. Ryu frowned and thought it was too sudden, but there was no other way out. He turns to Mrs. Tiamat and asks her if he can see the seal. The girl agrees and says that's why she was looking for them. She suggests they return to the castle. From there, they will all go to the cave together. At this time, a wall split in a huge dark cave. The tail of the monster was visible, darting across the stone ground. The monster was grinning and says that he will be free soon. His eyes shone with a bright flame. The monster was glad that he would soon fulfill his desires. A huge dragon flew across the bright, clear sky. Lear said that it seemed that this long-awaited hour had come. Karin was completely serious and agreed. At that moment, Ryu tensed up very much. He turned to Lady Tiamat and asked if the girl had already fought with the dark dragon. Tiamat was very surprised. Miss Tiamat said that she was young then, so she couldn't fight, but her relatives could, and he is very strong. Ryu thought that even for Tiamat, this dark dragon is a formidable opponent. He wonders if he can really handle it. At that moment, Ryu tensed, and Tiamat noticed it. Miss Tiamat told Ryu not to fill his head with unnecessary thoughts. He may be human, but the young man is not weak at all. He has achieved a lot during this time. She tells the young man that if he can't believe himself, he should believe her. Tiamat told the young man with confidence to believe in himself because the young man is strong. Ryu was very surprised, and then he confidently agreed. At that time, the princess grabbed him by the head and said that she would try too. She can't afford to take all the glory for herself. Ryu said he didn't need it at all. After a while, they arrive at a huge dark cave. There were a lot of magicians gathered in the depths of the cave, who gathered and began to use magic, creating a magic seal. Suddenly, a man appeared and asked the magicians how the situation was. The male magician called the man the Emperor. Ryu asked Miss Tiamat who these people were. The girl replied that these men were the spellcasters of their empire. They feed the seal with magic to make it last longer. Suddenly, the man screamed and said that the seal would not last any longer. Another caster said that in a few minutes the dragon would awaken. The emperor approached the casters and said that he had accepted the information. The spellcaster said to leave the rest to them. Suddenly, a strange black liquid began to flow between the stones. The next moment, the seal collapsed. Everyone was horrified and surprised. Even the emperor couldn't contain his emotions. The magicians were also surprised by the destroyed seal. The emperor immediately ordered everyone to evacuate urgently because the dragon was about to break out. Suddenly, the entire cave began to shake. A strange liquid began to pour out more and more strongly from the crack. Suddenly, someone said that he'd been waiting for this day to come for so long. Lear, Karen, and Ryu were very surprised. The next moment, a huge three-headed dragon appeared in front of them, which had strange markings all over its body. He examined the people and said that there were dragonites, Fenrir. And the dragon also saw that there was a man among them. He asked if the young man was really a hero. Ryu was surprised and said what it meant, and then wanted to say that he was not a hero. At this time, the emperor ordered his men to prepare for battle and not to let down their guard. The dragon said they were all like annoying insects. He says he's not interested in any of them. Then he casts a spell, and then he orders everyone to go away. Suddenly, some group has magical seals. The men screamed and asked what it was. They were about to retreat immediately, but the next moment, the group of dragonites and Fenrir disappeared. Ryu was very surprised that they had all disappeared. The princess and Lear immediately started calling for their father and mother, and Lyra turned to the dragon and asked him where he had sent them. The monster said that he had just transported them to another dimension. He wants to fight them, and all because they are this boy's band. He laughs and asks them to make him laugh. At that moment, a huge wolf was trying to smash the stone wall. However, the huge chipping in the wall was delayed. The man said he couldn't get through. Grandma Lear said that it looks like this space was created by dragon magic. The girl replied that it was a very powerful magic. The emperor said that we need to hurry, because Lear is there alone. The man told the wolf to take his time. They trained a lot, especially for this day, because they will cope. Now we need to think about how to get out of here. Suddenly, a black snake crawled across the ground. The blonde-haired girl shouted at the man to be careful. Suddenly, the man dodges and the snake misses. He looks at the ground, where many dark snakes are crawling. The man called these snakes a creature of darkness. They were surrounded, and they realized that the situation couldn't be worse. They realized that this dark dragon had not wasted any time. At this moment, the huge dark dragon was charging a magic attack from his magic seal. He was casting a spell. Suddenly, he spat out a huge amount of some dark liquid. The young man dodged with agility. The dragon was surprised and said that the young man had dodged again. He ordered him to stop running and attacking. Ryu shouted to the dragon that he didn't have to ask twice. He rushed towards the dragon and hit it. Ryu was very surprised that the dragon couldn't dodge. Then he realized that the monster had deliberately put himself under attack. At that moment, a strange liquid appeared behind the young man's back. Lady Tiamat shouted at Ryu to be careful because he can create creatures of darkness from blood. Suddenly, a dark snake appeared. Ms. Tiamat added that Ryu should not attack thoughtlessly, or he would be at a disadvantage. Ryu chopped up the creature of darkness snake and, clucking, said that he understood what Ms. Tiamat meant. Ms. Tiamat thought that the dark dragon had become much stronger than before, and with a scratch on his arm, he would be able to create creatures of darkness. If you don't kill him with one blow, then the situation will be just terrible. They will simply be overwhelmed by numbers, and they will all die. Ms. Tiamat looked at the young man intently and thought that in this situation they had the strength of that person. The next moment, the dragon charged a magic attack and asked how about it. He's casting a powerful spell. Ryu swung his sword in his direction and wanted to say that they were still together, but he did not have time to finish. A large number of magical seals appeared around the dark dragon. Ryu, Oka, Karen, and Lear were very surprised and scared. A huge attack from several seals rushed straight at Ryu's group. The latter said in surprise that they would not evade such an attack in any way. He just woke up, and where did he get so much strength from? The dragon asked the people what was the matter and if they hadn't come to kill him. Ryu thought that if nothing was done, they would die, and if they attacked, they would only increase the number of creatures of darkness. He doesn't know what to do. Suddenly, Miss Tiamat called out to Ryu. She shouted to the young man not to think of rushing. She told him to think carefully about the plan. He must do what he can. Mrs. Tiamat thought about it. She thought that although Ryu and the others had become stronger, they lacked combat experience. She hopes that the Emperor and the others will make it back in time. Until then, she must protect them. Suddenly, Princess Oka appears and says that you just need to kill the shadows with one blow. She smiles, putting her hand on her chest, and tells everyone to give it to her. The girl, reincarnating into a dragon, says that she will simply kill him before he activates the spells. Suddenly, Mrs. Tiamat shouted to Oka to wait. Suddenly, Oka transforms into a dragon form. Ryu sees a very cute little dragon and realizes that it is Oki's dragon form. Oka rushed straight to the dragon, shouting to him that he was finished. At that moment, Lady Tiamat also took on a dragon form. Suddenly, the dark dragon grinned and said it was stupid. He activated the magic seal, and the oak stopped in midair. She realized that the huge dark dragon was using silent magic. Ryu is afraid and shouts Oki's name. Suddenly, a huge explosion is uttered. Oka tries to wipe the dust from her eyes, and then she suddenly opens her eyes and freezes. She sees Tiamat's body in front of her. The girl was unconscious and showed no signs of life. Ryu shouts Tiamat's name, and Oka starts shaking with fear. The dark dragon asked if Tiamat had sacrificed herself for others and what kind of stupidity it was. He brushed Tiamat aside with his tail and told her to go away. Suddenly, Oka called her grandmother and flew to her body. Tiamat thought she couldn't move, and it was some kind of paralysis magic. She realizes that she needs to get up now. The dark dragon asks if they really call themselves heroes. The previous hero was much better than them. He laughs and asks them all to try and make him laugh. Lear, Karen, and Ryu were very tense. They didn't know what to do now. A huge dark snake rushes to the side directly towards the huge wolf, but he pins it to the ground and destroys it. He told the other wolves that they were all stepping on them, and there was no end to them. The man thinks it's bad. They were too late. Ryu and the guys need to hurry up. He understands that he urgently needs to come up with something before it's too late. In his mind, he asks Ryu and the others to hold on as long as possible. At this moment, the huge dark dragon was praising and ordering his opponents to attack him. Oka was trying to bring Grandma to her senses. She asked her to hold on. The girl continued to call her grandmother. At that moment, the dark dragon said that maybe if the interference was removed, Ryu would become more serious again. The main character immediately called out to Oka and Tiamat by name. The princess turned around and saw a magical attack rushing straight towards them. Oka snuggled up to Tiamat and squeezed her eyes shut. There was a huge explosion. After a while, Oka opens his eyes and sees Ryu and Lear in the dust. Ryu held the dagger in front of him and tensed up very much. Oka looked at the young man and the girl with a frightened look. She was about to tell them something, but Ryu shouted and asked the girl to calm down. Ryu turned to Oka and asked her to remember why she was here. Oka said it was her fault that Grandma was hurt. Ryu continued and said that if the girl died, Tiamat would cry, because all her attempts to protect her were in vain. Ryu said with a confident look that all hope was in them now, so Tiamat defended them with all her might. Oka was very surprised. Ryu smiled and told the girl to fight together. He called out to Oka once more. The girl was surprised. The next moment, Tiamat woke up and tried to say something, but Oka told her grandmother not to worry, because she would not do anything rash anymore. Oka joined Lear, Karen, and Ryu and said that now they would all fight together. They were very serious about it. The dark dragon laughed and said that he was so pleased with their pathetic attempts. He orders them to show everything they can. Then he stretches out his hand, which has a huge number of magic seals. Ryu's group headed straight towards the dark dragon. Ryu jumped from side to side, dodging the monster's attacks. Karen was next to the dragon. The girl was preparing to attack and then sent a huge amount of her power directly towards the dragon. The dark dragon reactivated the magic seal, grinned and asked if the girl had really decided to attack the dragon with fire. He snaps his fingers and says they'll get rid of her first. He's casting a spell. Suddenly, a magical seal appears directly under the girl, from which huge dark tentacles appear. The girl immediately noticed these tentacles. Ryu also noticed these tentacles and shouted at Karen to be careful. The girl tried to dodge and flew in the opposite direction, but the dark tentacles headed towards the girl. However, one of the tentacles tried to grab Karen's leg, but this tentacle was cut by Lear with her paw. She saved Karen from death. Lear landed on the ground and asked Karen if she was okay. Karen was delighted and, agreeing, thanked her sister for saving her. Then the dark dragon grinned and said that they would try and attack next. At that moment, Ryu and Oka rushed straight to the monster. Oka shouted that she would not let the dragon do this. In the next moment, the dark dragon activated a magic seal right in front of his body and blocked Ryu and Oki's attack. The dark dragon said it was a useless attack. He launched a sweeping attack, and Oka and Ryu tried to dodge. Ryu and Oka jumped aside and were serious. Ryu didn't know what to do. He was very tense. Ryu thought that Tiamat had warned him to avoid his spells at all costs. Simple attacks will not hurt him, and from his wounds he will summon creatures of darkness. He doesn't understand how they can defeat such a monster. At that moment, the dark dragon was distracted by Karen and Lear, as well as Oka returned to the fight. Ryu tries to remember training with Tiamat. He attentively watches the battle between Lyra and the dark dragon, and he thinks that he must have a weakness. The next moment, the dark dragon was grinning, and dust was flying around his body. Ryu suddenly had an epiphany, and he stared intently at the dark dragon. He thought that maybe if he used magic reading, then maybe something would work out. Suddenly, the ornament on the tail of the dark dragon lit up. Ryu was very scared. He watched carefully as he activated the magic seals. Then a magic seal appears on the ground, but Lear evades. Oka also fought with him. Ryu thought that it couldn't be, but if it was true, then there was no choice. He takes out a pen and suddenly turns to Lear and Karen in his mind, and also says that he has a question for them. He tells them his plan. Lear and Karen are very surprised and ask what the young man is talking about. Lear says that if they fail and ask the young man if he understands how dangerous it is, Ryu says that he is sure that together they will cope. Even if something happens, he is confident that they will be able to protect the young man. Lear and Karen were very surprised. Ryu continues and says that he believes in them, so he wants to try to carry out this plan. Then Lear clenches her fangs and says she understood, and suggests they do it. Karen says she will try too. Oka adds and says that she will try too. Suddenly, Ryu interrupts her and asks Oku to listen to him. And then the dragon asks if they have decided to do something. He asked them if they were really sure that he would let them do something. The dragon activates the magic seal, and then says that it's not like that, after which he casts a spell. Suddenly, Lear jumps up and finds himself right next to the dark dragon. The dark dragon thought that Lear had been able to knock down the spell. He smiles and says it's some kind of fast dog, but it can't dodge in the air at all. He activates the magic seal and directs it directly towards the Lear. Suddenly, some kind of magical flow appears around the dark dragon, which completely surrounded it. The dragon was surprised and asked if they had really limited the scope to the flame of the guard. He was looking around. The monster was surprised, and then smiled and said that they were fools, and only playing into his hands. He looks up and suddenly sees Oka appear out of the free space, rushing straight towards the dark dragon. Oka crashes headfirst into the dark dragon's body. He sways and becomes confused. He doesn't understand why the guard flame didn't work. He looks at Oka and thinks that only bones should have been left of her. Suddenly, he notices a feather in her mouth that was protecting her. Some time ago, Ryu turned to Oka and asked her to take Karen's pen. With it, Oka will not receive fire damage. He's protected the feather, so Oka doesn't have to worry. Ryu then told Oka that the dark dragon's magic is strong, but you just need to prevent the dragon from activating it. He also spoke about the source of his magic. The dark dragon said, tapping on the ground, that it was very interesting. He asked if they had really decided to attack him again. The dark dragon grins and says that he will send her to his grandmother. The monster then activates the magic seal. Oka grins and says that the only fool here is the dark dragon. The next moment, the dark dragon feels a sharp pain. He looks away and sees his severed tail. At this time, Lear chopped off the tail of the dark dragon with her sharp claws. Ryu said that the source of the dark dragon's magic is the tail. The dark dragon realized that this group had planned to do all this from the very beginning. The dragon laughed and said that he understood everything. He asks if they think they can take away his magic. Suddenly, the severed tail begins to deform, and a huge number of dark snakes appear from it. The dark dragon directed them and said that then his creatures would deal with them. He started laughing and saying that it was necessary to advance. He orders Ryu and his team to cheer him up a little more. He orders them to fight more and more to the limit of their strength. That's exactly what he wanted. Suddenly, the dark dragon wonders and is surprised. He looks around and realizes that it is very strange, and someone is missing among them. Suddenly, he remembers Ryu and realizes that the hero is not here. He looks at Lear, who's attacking the dark dragon, but it dodges. The dragon thinks that Ryu is really up to something. He shouts at the hero and asks where he is and demands to see him. The next moment, Ryu appears right from behind a Lear and says that he is here. Ryu grins as his blade begins to glow. The dark dragon looks at Ryu's glowing blade and realizes that he has put magic into the blade. All this time he was accumulating magical power. The dark dragon grins and says that this is what he has been looking for so long. He was looking for a real hero. At this moment, Ryu screams and threatens the dark dragon, and then attacks the dark dragon. When the young man's blade comes into contact with the dragon's body, a huge explosion occurs. Suddenly, a huge gust of air almost knocks Karen and Lyre off their feet. Oka also sees a huge stream of air and smoke formed after the explosion. She tries to make out the main character and the dragon. The next moment, the stream of dust dissipates. There is a dark dragon lying on the ground, which was unconscious and showed signs of life. At that moment, Oka, Lear, and Karina were watching the scene intently. Ryu looked at the dark dragon's body and suddenly asked if they had really won. He notices that the dark dragon's head shows no signs of life. Suddenly, it dawned on him. Ryu turns to the side and sees Lear, Karina, and Oka there. The girls ran straight to the young man and rejoiced, saying that they had won and coped. Everyone was happily repeating that they had defeated the dark dragon. Then Oka went straight to Tiamat and shouted to her that she would help her now. At that moment, Ryu noticed something in the dark dragon's body. He began to move his lips and move a little. The dark dragon said it was a good punch and just incredible strength. Even Ryu was able to defeat him, the dragon of darkness. He asks Ryu what he wants as a reward for his efforts. Then the dragon calls the young man a hero and says that he thinks his knowledge of magic will do. Ryu wonders if the dragon is really not going to fight anymore. Ryu tells the dark dragon that he didn't fight the dark dragon for the reward. Ryu asked the dragon to tell him what his goal was and why he wanted to fight the hero so much. A dark dragon lying on the ground. He said he just wanted to fight a strong opponent. He just wanted to know how strong he was. To do this, he needed a sufficient opponent, since people came here in droves. However, no one could hold out for long, and the dark dragon realized that only a hero could compare to him. But everyone began to fear him, and even the heroes, so they decided to seal him. Ryu, Lear, Oka, and Ryu were very surprised. At his last strength, the dark dragon said that he just wanted to find someone who could match his strength. He also says that being born with great power is a real curse. The young man is surprised by the words of the dark dragon. Ryu remembered how his comrades had told him that they had become much stronger, so they were going on a journey. He can't fight, so Ryu has to stay in the village. They said goodbye to him and told him to take care of the animals in the village. Ryu clenched his fist and thought about how the dark dragon was lonely. The dark dragon asked what was the matter and demanded the young man to tell him what he wanted. If nothing comes to mind, then he asks the young man to just finish him off. Ryu interrupts him and says that he has decided everything. He smiles and addresses the dragon of darkness, and then points his finger at himself and invites the dragon to become friends. Lear, Oka, and Karen were surprised, but the dark dragon was also surprised. Lear shouts at Ryu and asks him what he's carrying. The dark dragon asked the young man what he meant. Ryu replied that he understood him better than anyone else. Possessing great power, the dark dragon was very lonely. Ryu drooped a little and put his hand on his chest. At this time, Lear and Karen were looking at Ryu very sadly. The young man decided to approach the dragon and said that they had defeated him. Ryu holds out his hand to the lion dragon and says that they are equal with him, so he offers the dark dragon to be friends. Ryu smiles and asks the dark dragon if he will grant his wish. The dragon is surprised and silent. He was about to give an answer, but suddenly they are interrupted by Oka, who said she was against it. Oka said that the dark dragon had killed so many people and also injured her grandmother. She won't be friends with such a creature. If they forgive him, then the dark dragon may start killing again. She points to the reclining head of the dark dragon. Ryu said that after listening to his story, he realized that the dark dragon was no longer going to kill. Oka is about to say something, but Tiamat interrupts her. The lady answers, examining her body, that they were able to defeat the dark dragon, and the spell from her body fell off. Oka rejoices and rushes into the arms of his grandmother. Tiamat told Ryu that the world of monsters is a world in which the strongest survives, so the choice is up to Ryu. Ryu thought about it and said that if the dark dragon became evil again, then they could defeat him. If they could defeat him now, they could do it again. He turns to Uka and says that they may not trust him. However, he asks Uka if she doesn't believe him. Uka is tensing up. The girl remembers all the moments with Ryu. Uka turns away and says that she will agree only this time, but if something happens, it will be on the conscience of the young man. Ryu thanks the girl. Ryu turns to the dark dragon and asks him what his answer is. The dark dragon starts laughing and says it's some kind of strange wish. He agrees, and then asks the young man to let him heal him. Suddenly, a bright glow appears from his hand, and then the dragon points towards the young man. The dark dragon says it will be proof of their friendship. Then a bright glow penetrates directly into the young man's body. Ryu is surprised, and then the dark dragon says that he put a piece of his soul into the young man. He disappears and says that they will see each other soon. The main character was very surprised that the dark dragon had disappeared, and then his body buckled, and the young man fell to the ground. Lear rushed straight to the young man. After a while, the young man is in his consciousness. He is lying on someone's lap and realizes that he has lost consciousness. Ryu wakes up and asks where he is. The girl says that Ryu has finally woken up. Ryu is surprised and sees The girl smiles sweetly. Ryu says that they haven't seen each other for a long time and then asks if she really has already woken up. It turns out that the girl was able to recover. Replied that she had recovered, but could only talk to the young man in this world. Then told the young man that he was too reckless. Ryu was stunned. Said that in the battle with the dragon and during training, the young man was constantly on the verge of death. The desire to become stronger is not bad, but the young man is taking too many risks. Ryu understands what the girl said about training and realized that, it turns out, then it was who lent him strength. The main character replied that he understood and he would be more careful in the future. Smiled and said she was glad to hear that. Ryu then said that the dark dragon was talking about putting a part of his soul into it. Agrees and says that's exactly how it is and that the egg is in that direction. She points her hand directly at him. Ryu looked at the egg and asked if it was really the egg of the dark dragon, which is his soul. He said the egg looks beautiful. Smiled and said that the dragon of darkness was not originally evil. He was originally a golden dragon who was always striving for new knowledge. However, after learning forbidden magic, he turned into a dragon of darkness. He was just an ordinary dragon, but with a very strong soul. Ryu said he understood everything. Adds that Ryu is very kind. Then grins. She says that maybe Ryu spared the dark dragon because is also a dragon. Ryu looks at her carefully and thinks that he doesn't want to take anyone's life just like that. Replied that that was why she liked the young man. Ryu takes the egg and says they'll get back to the subject. She asks Ryu to take a closer look. The young man is surprised when he sees a small dragon inside the egg. Said that in this egg he is rebuilding his body. Ryu asks if he will really come to life someday. Agreed and told the young man not to worry, because she would look after this dragon. She then told Ryu that it was time for them to say goodbye. Ryu hesitated a bit and started to interrupt her. He asked when would be able to leave the young man's body. Was very surprised. Ryu said that has always been here alone and he is sad to realize that she is very lonely. Said she is not lonely. Ryu is very comfortable inside and she feels safe. She is quite comfortable here, so she asks the young man not to worry. He then asks if he becomes a demon lord, will the girl be able to come out? Gets scared and shudders. Replies that she will be able to get out. Ryu is happy, but the girl says that there is no need to do this. The demon lord is a powerful monster that commands other demons. She says that Ryu should never become one, so she suggests that they end their conversation for now. Ryu asks the girl to stop. Smiles sadly and says that they will be able to talk to Ryu later. The young man calls the girl, but she does not hear. After a while, the young man wakes up. Everyone is happily standing next to Ryu's bed. Miss Tiamat says she is glad that Ryu is okay. Ryu is surprised and asks where they are. Lear said that after Ryu fell, they met their grandparents and all returned safely to the castle. Ryu realizes that it looks like he must have been unconscious. Ryu thanks all of them for their help. Tiamat said that it seems that the young man has not fully recovered yet, so he should rest. Lear also tells the young man that if he feels unwell, he should call her. Ryu agrees and tells the girls to rest too. Ryu remains alone. The young man thinks it's good that is okay. It looks like she forcibly kicked him out of the dream. He doesn't understand why he shouldn't become a demon lord. At this time, was thinking that everything was exactly like that. If Ryu becomes the demon lord, then she will be able to get out of this space. However, with such power, the young man will be very lonely. He will have to sacrifice all his friends. She thinks about Ryu and asks if the main character can handle it. After a while, there was a celebration in the city. All the people were joyfully celebrating, eating, drinking, dancing, and singing. They rejoiced that the dragon of darkness had been defeated. They drank to the bottom. They blessed the dragon emperor and Lord Ryu. Lear walked up to Ryu and said, smiling, that it looked like the young man was very popular now. Ryu agreed and said that now people in the city are not giving him a pass. After a while, Ryu, Karen, and Lear arrive at the emperor's palace. The emperor asked the guys to let him express his gratitude to them once again. He says that without them, they would not have been able to defeat the evil dragon. The emperor then asks what she wants as a reward. Ryu got scared and said he shouldn't. The emperor smiles and tells the young man not to be shy, because he can't just let them go without rewarding them, so they can ask for whatever they want. Ryu thinks that even though the emperor says this, he does not understand what to ask for and there are no ideas at all. Ryu asks about what he can even ask for. The emperor replies that the young man can ask for anything his heart desires. For example, treasures, artifacts, or the right to live in a palace. Ryu thinks about it. Then Miss Tiamat smiles and apologizes for interfering. But she has an idea about the reward. She thinks about it and asks the young man why he should not choose her as a reward. The girl is grinning. Ryu, Oka, Lear, and Karen are very surprised and ask what the girl means. Lear asks if Mrs. Tiamat really wants to become his wife. Karen asks if Tiamat is going to marry Dad. Oka asks what Grandma is talking about. Ryu laughs nervously and says that for sure the Emperor will not agree to this. Suddenly, the Emperor and his wife say they don't mind at all. The Emperor asks Ryu what he will say to this, because it would be nice to get a dragon as a wife. Ryu was confused, and he was surrounded by his teammates. The young man looks at Mrs. Tiamat in panic and asks her why she's doing this. Tiamat covers her mouth with her hand and asks what she said. Suddenly, the Emperor asks the young man if he really did not like this proposal. The Emperor then asks if it is possible that Ryu will then take Lady Tiamat's claws. Ryu is surprised and asks the Emperor what he means by talking about claws. The Emperor agrees and says that strong weapons and simple armor are created from the claws and scales of dragons. They can enhance their equipment. Or the young man wants something else. He tells the Emperor that it will do, and then turns to Lady Tiamat. The girl was laughing nervously. The Emperor said that then the young man would receive dragon claws as a reward. He will prepare everything, but in the meantime, they can rest. At that moment, Oka exhaled. After a while, Ryu trained with Lear and Karen. He was practicing with a blade. Lear asks Ryu if he's okay. The young man wiped his sweat. Lear added that the young man has not recovered yet, and maybe he will rest a little more. Ryu said he was fine, so he better practice. Ryu was thinking that it looked like the dark dragon still hadn't recovered. It's good that is looking after him. He needs to become much stronger to catch up with the heroes. At that moment, Oka came up to Ryu and handed him a bottle with a towel. She told Joyous to take them. Then the girl asked if the young man really trained so much. Unfortunately, that's all she can do to help. The young man thanks the girl. Oka then watches carefully as Ryu wipes his sweat. Ryu asks the girl what's the matter. The girl says that there is nothing, and then asks what the young man will do when he receives the award. Ryu says he's thinking of finding his friends later. He asks Oka what she would like to do. Suddenly, Oka gets nervous and asks the young man if possible, she can go with the young man and his companions. Ryu asks what the Emperor will say. Oka told him not to worry, because her father said it would be good for her to tell the world. If they asked together, he will definitely allow it. Oka says that if possible, she would go with them. Ryu was amazed, and then remembered how the girl had said that she really wanted to travel. Oka thought that she was a princess and couldn't just leave the country, but she wanted to do it so much. Suddenly, Karen broke the silence. Karen is happy and says that she agrees and does not mind traveling with her at all. Lear said they couldn't do that at all. Everyone started to be silent. Ryu said that everything is correct and they cannot make such important decisions alone. Oka said nothing. Ryu patted the girl on the head and told her not to worry, because they would go with the girl. Ryu smiles and says that they will definitely get permission from the Emperor. He asked the girl to believe in him. Oka was delighted and, clenching her fists tightly, asked with a smile if this was really the case. They were going to go to the Emperor right away. Suddenly, a man interrupted them and said that the Emperor was calling them. He will escort them to the throne room. After a while, the group comes to the throne room. There's a huge table there. The Emperor pulls a white cloth off the table and says that this is the guy's reward. There were 5 claws on the table. Ryu was surprised that there were so many of them. The Emperor replied that Tiamat said that different claws have different effects, so they prepared several options. The claws of the Earth Dragon are very strong, and the claws of the Water Dragon are very flexible and beautiful. The Air Dragon has light and sharp claws. The Emperor said that there are also special ones. He asks the young man to choose any claws he likes. Ryu begins to look at the claws and realizes that there are a lot of different types of claws and he does not understand which one to choose. Suddenly, he notices the claw and says that he likes it, but he thinks that it is immediately obvious that it is special and also very comfortable in his hand. The Emperor smiled and said that he had a diamond in his eye. He says that this claw is Tiamat. Ryu is very surprised and asks if he really belongs to Tiamat. The Emperor says that they were very lucky, because the student chose the teacher's claw. Tiamat was embarrassed and told the Emperor to stop. Then the Emperor snapped his fingers and said he had a better idea. He asks Ryu why he shouldn't take Tiamat with him. Ryu and Tiamat are surprised. Oka, Karen, and Lear are also surprised. The Emperor asked Tiamat if she enjoyed training with Ryu. Tiamat said that she had an obligation to take care of Mrs. Oke, so she had to refuse. At this moment, Ryu notices Uka, who is very nervous, and clutches the hem of her dress with her hands. Ryu smiled and nodded at the girl. She clenched her hand into a fist. Suddenly, Oka stamped the heel of her shoe and turned to her grandmother and father. She says that if Grandma doesn't want to, then she would like to go on a trip with Ryu. She says she's been thinking about it for a long time. She wants to personally see all the wonders of this world. But even if they are against it, she is not going to give up. Oka bows and asks her grandmother and father to let her go on a trip. Suddenly, everyone started whispering that Miss Oka was still a child, and it was too dangerous. The Emperor says that he understands how the girl feels, but the girl is still too young, so she must wait a few more years. Suddenly, Tiamat says she has to disagree. Oka fought the Dragon of Darkness and did a good job. Tiamat thinks that Oka has grown up enough. Besides, she will be with Ryu. He's strong enough, so there won't be any problems. She thinks they should let Uka go. The girl was surprised by her grandmother's words. Tiamat turns to the young man and says that she has one condition. She says that Ryu is obliged to protect Oku during the journey. If she gets hurt, then the young man will not escape any punishment. Besides, it could lead to an international scandal. She asks the young man if he is ready to take responsibility for Oka. At this moment, Grandma is very serious. Oka says that Ryu doesn't have to agree to this, because she can protect herself. Tiamat said that in a previous interview, Oka had shown the opposite. She turns to Ryu and says that if the young man cannot protect the lady, then he cannot give consent, so he asks her to answer the question. Ryu starts to keep silent, and then says that he will speak frankly. He cannot promise such a thing. He doesn't know what might happen during the journey, so he can't guarantee that Okina won't get hurt. The girl gets scared. However, Ryu promised that if something happened, he would definitely help her. Not because she was a princess, but because they were friends. Therefore, they ask Miss Tiamat to let Oka travel with her friends. Ryu then bows. Mrs. Tiamat frowned and then smiled. She asked if Ryu was really a friend of the princess. Ryu panicked and said that's exactly what happened. Lady Tiamat turns to the Emperor and asks what the Emperor will say. She asks the emperor will he will let Oka go. The emperor smiled and asked how he could possibly refuse their benefactor's request. He agrees and tells Oka that she can go on a trip. Oki's fist starts shaking, and then the girl rejoices and says that she will be able to tell the world. Ryu turns to Oka and says that he is very happy. Oka thanks Ryu. Mrs. Tiamat interrupts them and says that, however, she has one condition. It consists in the fact that she goes with them. Ryu is surprised and asks Mrs. Tiamat. Oka is surprised and turns to his grandmother. Tiamat said she never said she wouldn't let them go alone. Tiamat said that if they cause problems in another country, it could result in an international conflict. In addition, this could result in an international conflict. In addition, it may cause problems for Mr. Ryu as well. Tiamat asked the young man to treat this with understanding. Lear says she doesn't mind, and Karina adds that it will be more fun this way. Suddenly, they ask Oka what's wrong. The girl replies that she was only glad that she finally got her freedom. The emperor laughed and told the girl not to talk like that. The man said that before they left, he would like to talk. The emperor says that he has a request for the young man. Ryu is surprised and asks what kind of request is in question. The emperor asks Ryu if they could visit the elf village. There are many spirits living in the elf forest, and he recently received a message from the spirit king. He asks Ryu to help him with a case. Ryu is surprised and asks if he really needs to help him with something. The emperor agrees and says that the news of the death of the Dragon of Darkness is spreading very quickly, so he asks to lend him his powers. The request is that people have started kidnapping elves, and he asks to catch all the poachers. They capture spirits, and the captured elves are sold as servants. It is difficult for him to appear in human settlements, so he asks the young man for help. Ryu said that he understood everything because he is also a human being. Ryu thought that he had asked for help from a man he hated. He doesn't mind helping, but he doesn't know what the others will say. Suddenly, he heard the girls telling Ryu to do as he sees fit. Lear says she's sure they all think the same way. Oka asks if this is not the best part of traveling, so that the young man can do what he wants. Ryu agreed and said that he would go to the elf village. The emperor said he was flattered that he had decided to ask for his help. He is very happy. Ryu realizes that he is supposed to be able to talk to the king of spirits himself. The emperor said that the village elder would speak for him. The village of the elves is located in the south of the great forest. Ryu said that he understood, and then they set off. Emperor Oak wants her to have a lot of fun while traveling. Mom wished the girl good luck. Oka smiled and saying goodbye to her parents, said that they had gone. Everyone was very happy. After a while, in the southern part of the great forest, Ryu's group made their way through the thicket of the forest. Ryu said that it is difficult to walk in this part because of the roots. Tiamat replied that there are many large trees in this part of the forest. They are approaching the elven village, and it will be easier to go further. Ryu said he understood everything. Ryu turns to the guys and says that there is very little left. He looks at Uka, who was all out of breath and was very upset. The girl said she was fine and then tried to catch her breath. Tiamat told the girl to hurry up. If they keep going at the same pace, they will never get there. She asks the princess to consider it a workout, and then asks her to try her best. Oka was upset. Ryu said it was tough. Ryu said that, by the way, this is his first time in this part of the forest. Miss Tiamat said it was okay. The spirits created a barrier around the village so that it would be impossible to find it. Lear said they couldn't get into the village. There are guardian spirits around the barrier. If they identify themselves, they will let them in. Ryu smiled and said that it looked like they were already close. Suddenly, the young man was surprised and looked sideways. They saw a young man's little spirit. Ryu was very happy, and Karen said that it was the first time they had seen them. Ryu asked the spirit if he had really come to meet them. Suddenly, the spirit showed which way to go and flew there. Ryu didn't know if he should go after him or what had happened. They did not understand where the spirit was flying at high speed. Tiamat said that she did not understand anything, but they began to move away from the village. Suddenly, the young man heard a voice. The next moment, someone attacked them. Lear and Ryu were even a little scared. Then they looked and saw a huge number of spiders. Tiamat said that these monsters are called forest spiders. Ryu did not understand where so many of them came from, and then Karen turned to the young man and asked him to look away. Huge spiders attacked people. Ryu said he needed to help them. They quickly dealt with a bunch of spiders. one of the spiders attacked the young man, who was very shocked. Ryu said if the young man was really safe. Lear agreed and said that the young man had fainted. Tiamat said he didn't seem to have any serious injuries. Suddenly, the spirit flew up to the young man. Ryu said that's why he brought them here. And then there was a sound from the carriage, who were calling a man and asking if he could help them. There were elves in the cage, and asked the young man if he could let them out. Lear and Ryu were very surprised when they saw the elves in the wagon. After a while, they released them. The elves thank the young man and say that they will not be able to reward them now. Ryu said he didn't need anything. His name is Ryu, and he came at the request of the Spirit King. Oka said that everything was fine. Ryu said that this spirit brought them here. The elf is surprised, and then sees a spirit who asks her to be silent and smiles. After a while, people wake up and do not understand what happened, and they were attacked by forest spiders. They rushed to run and shouted that they didn't care about the elves, because they needed to escape from here, because their lives were dear to them. Ryu realized that they had escaped without thinking, and then suddenly discovers something on the ground. He sees a sword with an interesting emblem that seems to be on all things. Tiamat said she'd never seen anything like this before. It seems that they are all from the same group, and this group is clearly not a small one. Perhaps even the nobles are members of this organization. Ryu says that no more information is needed. They have to go to the village, so they need to talk to the King of Spirits, and they need to escort the elves home. After a while, they walk through a dense forest. Ryu thinks that the elves who were kidnapped are 4 women and 2 children. He realized that even children were being abducted. He doesn't even want to think about what these people wanted to do to them. We need to deal with these poachers as soon as possible and protect the elves and spirits. The elf girl says they're almost there. They just have to go through the bushes. Then they come to their home. Ryu is surprised and says that this is an elf village. Then the little spirit flies away and Ryu says goodbye to him. An elf runs up to them and calls the elf Helen. Then he grabs her in his arms. He says he's glad she's okay. The girl says that she is in pain, and the elf replies that he was so worried when she was kidnapped. Ryu understands that they are a family. Helen points to the young man and says that they were saved by that man. The man bows and thanks Ryu for saving Helen. Ryu says that no thanks are needed, and he just helped in a difficult moment. Helen calls her grandfather and says that they came to them at the request of the King of Spirits. The man asks if this was really the case, and then says that the young man must be Mr. Ryu. He clears his throat and asks to introduce himself, saying that he is the village elder and his name is Al Ray Solon, and this is his granddaughter, Helen. Ryu is surprised that the man is an elder and realizes that he doesn't look more than 20. He wonders if elves age at all. At this point, Al takes them to the King of Spirits, so he asks the guys to follow him. After a while, they come to the house with a round table. There are already several people sitting there, and only one chair is empty. The elder turns to the Lord and says that Mr. Ryu has arrived at his request. He thinks they can start saving their kin. Ryu asks if they want to discuss strategy. The elder gives a positive answer. Many of their relatives have been kidnapped by traders and will soon be sold into the ministry. He developed a plan to deal with them. Ryu asked what it was. The elder of the elves said that they would break into the houses of the nobles who bought their brothers and rescue all the elves and spirits, as well as kill all the bad people. That's all. Ryu was very surprised and asked what it all meant. Then he realized that this plan was too simple. Lear and Tiamat were also surprised and amazed. Lear whispered to Ryu, could it be that the elder was joking? Ryu replied that he didn't think so. At this time, Karen told the elder that this was a great plan. Oka agreed with the girl and added that they could go and kill everyone. They were already rushing into battle, but suddenly Ryu stopped them, grabbing both of them by the shoulders. He ordered the girls to stop, and then he added that it was too reckless. First, how do they find out which houses the elves will be in, and why not immediately break into the dealers of prohibited goods? The elf said that the scouts they sent to the kingdom still haven't returned. Ryu said that if they attacked the nobles, they would definitely want revenge and attack the village. They need to think it over again. Suddenly, the elf banged his fist on the table and said that they didn't have that much time. Even now, their kin are suffering from these ruthless people. They endure all this pain with the hope that they will save them, and they cannot keep them waiting. The elves began to support the one who had just made a speech. Ryu realized that it was also very difficult for them, and that was why they were in such a hurry, because they want to save the elves and spirits as soon as possible. Ryu purses her lips and says that she needs to think about everything first. If they attack indiscriminately, the elves may die and they will waste a lot of time. It will do more harm than good. The elder asked what they should do then. Ryu puts his hand to his chest and tells the elves to leave it to him. He will come to the dealers of prohibited goods as a buyer. All the elves are surprised. Ryu says that when he sells, he will be able to find out the necessary information, and, perhaps, he will be able to buy some of them outright. The elder asked if it wasn't too dangerous. Oka said that was it. Besides, he has no idea how much money the young man will need for this. Ryu says that they just need to be earned. He will receive money from the sale of materials from hunting in the Great Forest. In addition, he has a small stock from the sale in the Dwarf Kingdom. He thinks there are about 60 gold coins left. He turns to the elder and asks him if there are dangerous monsters in the area. He will be able to earn money from them. The elder says that, of course, there are many forest spiders here. They have recently appeared in the forest and have begun to actively reproduce. They've already suffered enough from them. Tiamat told the young man not to forget about the monsters they had already defeated. Ryu agreed and said that there would be no problems. He raises his hand and says that they are starting a mission to save the elves and will do their best. At this time, in the deep forest, a spirit flew to another spirit. The latter, seeing him, exclaimed. The spirit turned to the young man and asked where he had been all this time, because he had been looking for him for a very long time. The spirit apologizes and says that he wanted to know a little about Ryu. The spirit says that if the young man runs away like that, then he may have problems. And then he asks the spirit how Ryu felt. The spirit puts on the mantle and says that he, the king of spirits, recognized him as a very interesting guy. He is confident that Ryu will be able to help their village. He also adds that although Ryu is a mentor, he's very brave and kind-hearted. Sometime in the past, the Spirit King met with a man. They wanted to create a world between humans and spirits. The man agreed and said, "Why don't they sign a contract to use the power of spirits?" The powers of spirits can greatly help people in many ways. The spirit asks what their advantage is. The man said he would explain now. He says that now people have completely forgotten about the blessings of the spirits and use them as simple workers, and they can change that. The King of Spirits thinks about it when he reads the letter and realizes that he seems to be the only one who still believes in it. Sometime later, Ryu killed several spiders and said that he thought that would be enough. The elf asked if people would buy them at all. Ryu said that they can be used in any way. For example, use threads for clothes. He says that now they can go to the principality. Suddenly, an elder comes up to Ryu and calls him. The elder asks the young man to help their brothers because his daughter is among those abducted. Ryu was surprised and asked if his daughter was really among the abducted. The elder said that many children, parents, and even orphans had been abducted. However, each of them is dear to him. All the elves bowed down and asked Ryu and his group to bring them home. The main character agrees. The elder rummages in his pocket and asks the young man to take something. He gives him a package. Ryu asks what kind of letter it is. The elder says that this letter is from the King of Spirits, and the young man can give it to the ruler of the principality. He asks which ruler of the principality the young man is talking about. Ryu asks about what's in this letter. The elder replies that Ryu should just hand it over. Ryu agrees and says that he is not sure if he will be able to meet him, but he will try. The elder thanked Ryu's group. Ryu and his team turn around and leave. The elves wish them the blessing of the Spirit King. After a while, the girls asked Ryu what kind of principality Uruk was. Ryu replied to Karen that he did not know the details, but everything was not as strict there as in other countries. You don't need a card when you enter there. Ms. Tiamat replied that this principality had also received the blessing of the spirits. Oka was surprised and asked if they were really kidnapping elves and spirits for sale. Tiamat said it was most likely someone's plan. First, you need to get information. When they sell the spiders to the guild, they should talk to the people. They come to the city and Ryu asks if this is really the principality of Uruk. He also says he doesn't see anything special. They enter the guild and realize that it is somehow lifeless here. The young man takes out the spiders and says he wants to sell them. They give him money and ask him to count it. Ryu thanked him, but he thought that he had some kind of feeling of déjà vu. Ryu then says that they have received the money. Suddenly, someone calls Ryu. It was Mac. The young man said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Mac said he heard that someone was selling rare materials, so he came to take a look. He thought it was a young man. Ryu was surprised. Oka asked Ryu if he really knew Mac. Ryu agreed and said that they had met in the land of the dwarves. Mac said he couldn't even believe he'd met Ryu here. He did not expect that the young man decided to come here at such a busy time. Ryu is surprised and asks the young man what kind of stressful time Mac is talking about. Mac said that perhaps the young man did not know, but the ruler had recently come down with an illness. Ryu was very surprised. Mac continued and said that in this country, whoever was able to sign a contract with the King of Spirits becomes the ruler. However, now no one has been able to sign the contract, so people are very worried. Ryu replied that everything was clear. He thought about what it meant that the Spirit King and the current ruler were familiar. Perhaps the letter says about the future receiver. Mac asked Ryu what he was doing here anyway. The young man was surprised, but he thought that he could not tell him that he had come to save the elves. Ryu replied that upon request from one village, he was looking for missing people. Mac is surprised and says that Ryu is so kind. Ryu asks the young man if he has any information. He asks if he has heard anything about servants in this country. Mac says it's not much. He had heard that there was a dark guild in this country that dealt in illegal goods. They're kind of called Black Wolves. The guy said that he remembered one person who was associated with this guild. Ryu was surprised and asked if this was really the case. Max said that with the appearance of Ryu's group, it would be difficult to contact him. Ryu was surprised and asked what it meant. Max said that dealers in prohibited goods are essentially people who meet by their clothes. With their appearance, they can simply be mistaken for the poor. Ryu said he understood. Mac replied that as soon as they got expensive clothes, so they could go straight to him. There's nothing else he can do. Ryu thanked them. After a while, the guy waved at them and said goodbye to them. The girls were worried and asked if everything was going to be all right. Karen said it was inconvenient. Oka told the girl that it suits her very well. Tiamat told everyone that they should behave like aristocrats, so they should watch their behavior and words. The heroes were dressed in very gallant and expensive clothes. Ryu told the girls that everything was fine and suggested that they repeat everything. In the family, Ryu is the father and Tiamat is his wife. Karen and Oka are their daughters. He wants to say who Lear will be, but the girl screamed very hard and asked why she had to be an animal. Ryu said it was because the girl couldn't hide her tail and ears. It is very difficult for her to disguise herself as a human. The girl was upset. Then they decided to go to the dealers of prohibited goods. Everyone agreed. After a while, the whole group was met by the butler, who asked if it was really their first time. Ryu agreed and said that his close friend Mac had recommended them to him. The man said he understood everything. The man then asked Ryu which servant they were interested in. Ryu was surprised and thought that he hadn't even thought of making a purchase plan. Suddenly, Mrs. Tiamat interrupted them and said that he should do his housework well and preferably have an attractive appearance. She asked what kind of servants they had. The man said that then they should be allowed to show them all the goods they have, so he asks them to go after him. Ryu turns to Tiamat, who waves her head. They go down a long flight of stairs. Ryu asked the man what kind of servants they keep. The man replied that they had a lot of servants. There is a man who could not pay off his debts. There is also a former adventurer gnome. In general, the man is sure that they will be satisfied. Oka whispered and said it was disgusting. Ryu asked her to be quiet. The man also said that they still have half-humans. Ryu asked if they were even available. The man agreed and said that it was exactly like that and asked Ryu if he was really interested. The man replied that he could show them if they wanted to. The man asked Ryu what race the man was interested in. Maybe dogs or cats. Suddenly, Ryu asks the man if they have elves. The man is very surprised. He stopped and Ryu whispered to Tiamat, asking if he had really said something wrong. Tiamat replied that perhaps he had begun to suspect. The man said he was very sorry, and he added that, unfortunately, they do not have elves. Ryu was surprised. After a while, they arrive at the room. The man says that elves are a valuable commodity, and they are only put up for auction. Ryu said that he understood everything, which means that they can't be found at other merchants either. The man agreed and said that it was much more profitable to sell them at auctions. The main character thought that this was very bad, and everything could be solved with money with merchants. But with auctions, it was another matter. The one with the most money wins at auctions, and the elves will be worth fabulous money. He understands that they need to find out where they are being held faster. Ryu asks the man where the auction will take place. The man said that he was very sorry, but he could not disclose such information. Ryu lays out a bag of gold coins and asks the man if he can tell him a little about elves for a modest gift. The man was very surprised. The man hands over a list of those who are put up for auction and asks the man not to disclose the information to others. They have especially many women and children. Recently, the Dark Guild has done its best. He had heard that they had recently been able to capture a bunch of elves. Ryu realizes that there are so many of them. If they want to free everyone, then they need to act carefully. Suddenly, Ryu notices Wiro Rei Solin. He points at her, and the man says that the dear client has a good eye. Ryu realizes that in 3 days she will be sold at auction, and the headman asks to save his daughter. He looks at the girl and realizes that they have the same last name, and it seems that this is the elder's daughter. Tiamat whispers to the young man and says that there is little time left before the auction, and they should hurry up. Ryu agreed. Ryu says that means there will be a chance to get a real treasure soon, and then asks why elves are so valuable. The man replied that he didn't even know. Suddenly, Ryu gives him another bag of coins, and the man agrees to tell Ryu everything. It was said in the Dark Guild that every elf was followed by a spirit. The elf himself is considered as a nice bonus. Ryu asks about the bonus and wonders what it means. The man asks Ryu if he knows that the ruler is ill right now. Therefore, now everyone is trying to sign a contract with the spirit, and for this, elves are needed. Usually, the spirits are always near the elves. After listening to all this, the main character said that he understood everything. Ryu thinks about the words of the elf, who says that even now their brothers and sisters are suffering terribly. They ask the young man to help. He looks at the man and thinks that now the hearts of the elves are bursting with grief, and they have staged a spirit hunt and treat elves like things. Ryu was very angry. Even Karen noticed this and said that Dad was very angry, and Oka said that she felt bloodlust. The man asks Ryu if there is anything else he can do to help. Ryu gave a negative answer and said that would be enough. He also asked if he could find out who was behind it. The man apologized and said that he did not have such information. Ryu thanked the man for the information. He says that they think it's time for them to go. Next time, they will definitely buy a servant from them. The man thanked them and said he would look forward to their next visit. After a while, Lear said that she couldn't believe that elves were being kidnapped just for money. Karen also said it was terrible. Lear turned to Ryu and asked if the young man was okay. He replied that everything was fine. He said they would definitely save all the elves. He doesn't understand how one can look at other races as things. Lear and Karen agreed with the young man. Ryu says they need more information. We need to find out where the prisoners are being held and who's behind all this. Ms. Tiamat suggested that the children change their clothes because they are too conspicuous now. Ryu agreed with the girl. Then they decided to hide the clothes here. The main character says that after that they need to ask more questions. At the same time, he opens a pot standing on the ground, and what he sees inside surprises him very much. There is a child inside giggling nervously and greeting Ryu. Everyone is very surprised. The child greeted Ryu. The latter took and closed the lid of the pot. The child screamed and asked the young man what he was doing. Ryu apologized and said that he did not want to invade the child's home. The girl said that this was not her house and she was not a child. Her name is Alice, and she will be 19 this year, and she is an informant from the land of the world. Alice also told the young man not to underestimate her. Ryu said that he looked like a child. Ryu then asked about the Land of Light and said that it was his home. Alice was surprised and asked if he was really from there too. Ms. Tiamat asked about the Land of Light and asked if this is really the country where the church dominates. Oka asked about the church. Ryu said that this is where they get their profession. A huge organization of priests. Alice said that everything was right and that's why she came here to serve their hero. Ryu was surprised and asked if they really knew Chia. Alice agreed and said that she is a member of the Heroes group and is engaged in intelligence and information gathering. Although, their squad is a little different from the group of heroes. Since they are from the same city, she asked the young man if he can help her in one case. Ryu asks about what it means. The girl says that the trade in prohibited goods is flourishing in this country, and it needs to be stopped. Ryu realizes that Alice is pursuing the same goal as them. Alice said that she already knows everything about how they came to the city to save the servants. They disguised themselves as rich people and infiltrated a dealer in prohibited goods. She can provide them with a lot of useful information. She asks what they think and if they will help free the servants. She asks what their answer is. Ryu thinks about it and then asks the girl to let him find out why they are. If Alice works in the intelligence group, then why don't they release the servants themselves? Alice said she could get information easily, but she couldn't fight. She had already tried to enter the auction once, so they just threw her out the door. Ryu asked, so she decided to ask her for help. Alice agreed and said that excessive spirit hunting is a big problem. People use elemental magic thanks to spirits, because a long time ago people signed a contract with the King of Spirits, and he granted them magic. However, after such an outburst, he can break off the conflict. After that, they may lose their magic, and they will have to fight the monsters on their own. Ryu thinks that the hero may lose his powers too. Alice rushes to Ryu and says that she really asks him and will definitely repay him. She must definitely complete this mission. If he fails, how can he look the hero in the eye? Ryu agreed and said they would help. Lear added that the hero hates monsters and it's okay that they will help. Ryu realized that it would be better for them not to approach the hero yet, but information would not hurt them either. He invites Lear to talk. It looks like Alice is from a separate squad from the hero. Her information may be useful to them. Perhaps they will be able to avoid the attention of the hero. Tiamat said it would be better this way. He says that then everything is decided. Ryu says they are willing to help. However, in return, the girl will share the information they're interested in. Alice asked if it was really true. She thanked the young man. Alice said she would contact the squad. Then the girl fell silent. Karen asked about what she was doing. Ryu said it was a magical artifact. It works in much the same way as their connection. Alice then says she has received permission. She asks them to talk in the room. The girl calls everyone to follow her. She stumbles and falls. Ryu wonders if she's really from the scouting squad. After a while, they return, and Alice tells the captain that she has returned. To which the men reply that they were waiting for them. Ryu's group was met by another group. The man thanked the guys for helping Alice.